I already want to use that. So go inside of header, and what I want you to do is below this h2 element, render the verified mark component from // verified mark. And I'm going to change the import to go to /components like this. So now you should just be seeing a plain check icon next to it, so you can see in real time how we're going to modify these classes. So let's give this wrapping div a class name of padding 0.5 like this, flex, items center, justify center. Then now let's give it a height of 4 and a width of 4, rounded full, so it's going to be a circle, and let's give it bg blue 600 like this. There we go. And now let's go ahead and give this check a class name of age 10 pixels specifically, width of 10 pixels specifically as well, text primary, and let's give it a stroke of 4 pixels like that. And there we go. I believe now we have a check mark which is similar to what other streaming services have, and it uses our primary blue color. Let's go back inside of our header component now. And now I think it's time for us to add some hooks here so we can actually render all the dynamic content we need, like the amount of viewers, right? So first, let's go ahead and get all the participants. So const participants. So we're going to use the same hook, which we just used inside of our community, inside of our chat community, right? So in here to render the participants and to filter them, we use the hook called use participants, right? So we're going to reuse that. So that's how useful these hooks are, because they all live in the same context. So they all have the exact same information and they are all connected in real time. So make sure you import use participants from LiveKit Components React. And we're going to use that as a count for our participants. And now we have to get the actual streamer. So we're going to call him participant, a single, right? And now let's do use remote participant from LiveKit Components React and make sure it uses the single one. So make sure you add the use participants and the use remote participant hook. And now we have to pass in the identity here. So let's pass in the host identity like this. And now let's go ahead and do const is live to be, so turn this state of the remote participant into a Boolean by adding double exclamation points. So just add participant. And now you can see that this is live hook is a type of Boolean, right? We could have used this as well, but then you can see that it's this type. So I want to go ahead and make sure that this is a Boolean. And now let's go ahead and add const participant count to be participants, right? So we're using the result from this hook, participants.length. And let's also do -1, because we know that one of the participants is going to be us locally streaming, right? That's why we had that duplication inside of our community, if you remember, which we had to dedupe. And now let's go ahead and write const host as viewer to be open backticks host dash and render the host identity inside. And then what we can do is check if we are the host. So const is host is viewer identity equals host as viewer like this. Great. So now we have all these necessary hooks. So let's go ahead now and let's go outside of this div, which is wrapping the h2 element and the verified mark, and go ahead and write a paragraph here, which is simply going to render the name of the stream, right? So that should now be, did we add the name? We have the name in the types, but it looks like I forgot to destructure it in the props. So make sure you do that. And now you should see the text which says Antonio's stream, which is the default name of our stream. If you remember in my LiveKit webhook, when I create in my Clerk webhook, when we create a new user, we create a stream with a default name of Antonio or whatever is the username, Antonio's stream, right? So that's why that is appearing here. So let's head back inside of our header component here. And let's go ahead and give this paragraph, which renders the stream's name, a class name of text small and font semi-bold. And now let's go ahead and dynamically render some content. So if we are live, in that case, I want to go ahead and render a div with a class name, font semi-bold, flex, gap x1, items center, text extra small, and text rows 500. And then inside, I'm going to render the user icon from Lucid React. So make sure you add the user icon here. And I'm just going to move it to the top with the global imports. And let's go ahead and give this user icon a class name, height 4 and width 4. And below that, we're going to add a paragraph, which is going to render our participant count. And then we're going to change the label. So if participant count is equal to 1, we're going to say viewer. Otherwise, it's going to be viewers, right? So if it's 0, it's going to be 0 viewers. If it's 2, it's going to be 2 viewers. But if it's 1, it's going to say 1 viewer. So this should be in one line, of course, like this. All right, and now what we have to do is we have to render an alternative for this ternary. So let's write a paragraph here. And I'm simply going to write offline. And in here, let's write a class name, font semi-bold, text extra small, and text muted foreground, like this. Great, and now let's go ahead and modify this user avatar is live to actually use our is live constant. So there we go. Now, as you can see, I'm completely offline and this says offline. But if I go into my OBS and click start streaming, this should all change and this should go from offline to 1 viewer. Great, so it is working. So I'm going to stop streaming now. And what I want to create now is the actions here so we can follow and unfollow this user. So for that, we're going to go ahead just above this last div here, add an actions component like this. And go ahead and pass in the is following to be is following. Pass in the host identity to be host identity. And is host to be is host. Like this. Great. So now obviously we have this error here because we don't have actions defined. So let's go inside of the stream player and create a new file, actions.tsx. Let's go ahead and mark this as use client. And let's go ahead and let's create an interface actions props here. Let's pass in the host identity, which is a string, is following, which is a boolean, is host, which is a boolean as well. Now let's go ahead and export const actions. Let's return a div actions. And in here, let's assign the props. So actions props. And host identity is following and is host. Like this. Great. So what I want to go ahead and do now is replace this div with a button component from /UI button, and let's change this import to use components. And while we are here, let's go back to the header and let's import this actions from /actions. So make sure you don't import this from anywhere else, because we do have some components named actions inside of our navbars, right? Great. So now inside of these actions, I want to go ahead and do the following. I want to give this button an onClick for now to be an empty arrow function. Then I want to go ahead and give it a variant of primary. I want to give it a size of small and a class name of width full and LG width auto, like this. You can see how now it looks on mobile, right? And you can see how it looks on desktop. Great. So now what I want to do is I want to add a couple of dynamic items here. So first, did we mark this as use client? We did. Good. Let's go ahead and add our use out hook. So let's go use out from Clerk Next.js. So make sure you import this. And in here, go ahead and extract the user ID like that. So let's just make sure that we have this. And we're going to use this in a moment when we create our follow function, right? We already have that service. We're just going to go ahead and call it from here. But what I want to do now is show the content for this action button. So let's go ahead and render the heart icon from Lucid React. I'm just going to move this to the top. And I want to give this heart icon a class name, which is going to be dynamic. So open up CN and make sure you import CN from libutils like this. And inside of here, let's go ahead and first render h4 width 4 and margin right of 2. And then we're going to use the isFollowing prop to dynamically render some content. So if it's following, it's going to be fill white. If it's not, it's going to be fill none. Like this. Great. And then let's go ahead and modify this label to again use isFollowing, unfollow, or follow like this. Great. So what I want to do now is I want to create a function called const handle follow like this. Or let's call it toggle follow, right? And in here, I'm first going to check if we have the user ID or not. So if we don't have the user ID, what we have to do is we have to redirect the user. In order to do that, I want to go ahead and import useRouter from next/navigation. And then in here, I can get my router, useRouter like this. And I can simply go ahead and do router.push/sign-in like that. And now let's check if we are the host. So if and yeah, don't forget to return this, right? So we need to break this function. So make sure you do return, right? Now let's go ahead and check if isHost. We can also return, right? The host cannot follow themselves. And now let's go ahead and do if isFollowing, isFollowing, unfollow, else follow, like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and import onFollow from actions follow, and I'm also going to go ahead and import onUnfollow like this. And I'm also going to go ahead and import useTransition from React. Now in here, I'm going to go ahead and extract isPending and start transition from useTransition. And then in here, I'm going to go ahead and create const handle follow to very simply be a start transition, which is then going to go ahead and do onFollow, and we have to pass in the host identity like this, right? And let's go ahead and add .then, and we will get the data so we can fire up our toast. So make sure you import toast from Sonar. And in here, we're going to do toast.success. You are now following, and let's go ahead and render the username, which is going to be data.follower. Is it following? I think following.username. Like this. And let's add .catch here, which is just going to be toast error, something went wrong. Like that. So now we have the handle follow function, so we can go ahead and pass it inside of this comment, handle follow. And now we have to create an equivalent unfollow. So we can just copy handle follow and rename this to handle unfollow. And let's change the action to use onUnfollow. And we're gonna write you have unfollowed the user like this. And I believe the data following is exactly the same. And now inside of toggle follow, let's call the handle unfollow like this. Great. And now we can use the toggle follow to be on click here, and we can add disable to be isPending like this. Great. But I believe we also want to disable this button if we are already following. If we are a host, right? So let's do a pipe isHost like this, and there we go. Now, as you can see, I cannot follow myself because I am a host. Perfect. What I want to create now is a skeleton of this, so it has its own loading state. So let's go ahead and let's import skeleton from .UI skeleton or in our case components skeleton, and let me just align this like that. And let's go ahead and let's do export const actions skeleton and return a skeleton component with a class name h10 with full and LG with 24, like this. Great, so now we have that. Perfect, and now we can go back inside of the header component here, where we render these actions. And what I want to do is create a header skeleton. So export const header skeleton here. And let's go ahead and return, and let's also import the skeleton, right? So in here, import skeleton from add/components UI skeleton, like this. Great. And let's go ahead inside and let's return a div, which is going to have the exact same class names as our div. So this one, right? You can literally copy the class names like this and go ahead and paste them here. And then inside, also the same div, so flex item center and gap x2. Then let's render the user avatar skeleton. So that's why it was very useful that we had that. And we can also pass in the size for the skeleton. Great. So make sure you import user avatar skeleton, which we defined somewhere in the beginning of our application, I believe, when we were working on the sidebar. So we have the user avatar skeleton. And now below it, I want to open up a div with a class name of spacey2. And I want to go ahead and render the skeleton component with a class name h6 and width of 32. And below that, I want to use h4 and width of 24. And outside of here, I want to render the actions skeleton from /actions, which we just created like this. There we go. And now that we have the header skeleton, we can go back inside of Stream Player. So inside of Stream Player, we should have an index component here. And go inside of Stream Player skeleton, and we left a comment to do add header skeleton. And now we can do the header skeleton from /header. So make sure you import header skeleton like that. I'm gonna move it here. And now we should have a nicer loading state. There we go. You can see how we now have header elements here, and even on mobile, it should be like this. There we go. So it's fully supported on desktop and mobile. Great. So you wrapped up the header skeleton. What we have to do next is we have to create our stream information and our user bio box. Now let's create our info component right here. So I want to go back inside of my Stream Player, and just below our header component, I want to go ahead and add an info card. So let's go ahead and let's render the info card, which we're going to create in a second, and let's prepare all the props it needs. So it needs host identity, which is user.id. It needs the viewer identity, which is the identity which we get from our useViewerToken hook. It needs the name of the stream, which is stream.name. And it needs the thumbnail URL, which is stream.thumbnail URL, like this. And now we're gonna go ahead and create our info card.tsx. And let's go ahead and mark this as use client. And let's go ahead and create an interface info card props. And let's make it accept the stream name, thumbnail URL, which is string or null, host identity, which is a string, and viewer identity, which is a string as well. And now let's export const info card. And let's go ahead and assign info card props in here, and let's return a div info card. Now go back to the Stream Player, and you can import the info card from /info card. I'm just going to move it here to the top. And you should no longer be having any errors. Instead, you should see the text info card or whatever you've written inside of the component. So now let's go ahead and let's style this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add well, let's extract all of these things, right? So name, thumbnail URL, host identity, and viewer identity. And let's define two constants here. So first, const host as viewer is going to be host and then host identity. And then let's define const is host to be viewer identity host as viewer. So we need this because only host will be able to see the information about their stream, because this is also going to hold the button to modify the stream information. So if it is not host, return null like this. So in your case, you should still be seeing this because you are on the creator page and you are a host of this stream. And now let's go ahead and give this div a class name of padding 6. Actually, let's give it a px of 4. That's how much space we need this to take. Now let's go ahead and create a div here, class name rounded xl and bg background, like that. And inside, let's go ahead and render a div which is going to hold a couple of elements here. So give it flex item center, gap x 2.5 and padding of 4. And first, let's go ahead and render a div, right, as I did, and then a pencil icon inside. So this div around the pencil is going to be our little circle which we're going to create. So make sure you've added pencil from Lucid React. And now let's style this pencil by giving it a class name of h5 and width of 5. Now give this div a class name rounded medium bg blue 600, padding of 2 and h auto and width auto, like this. There we go. So now you should have a nice little pencil inside of a rounded rectangle, right? Now outside of this div which holds the pencil, go ahead and open up a new div, and actually it's not going to have any classes, but instead it's going to render an h2 element, edit your stream info like this, and give it a class name of text small, large text LG, font semi-bold, and capitalize, like that. And below that, a paragraph, maximize your visibility. And let's give this a class name of text muted foreground, text extra small, and large LG text small, like that. So now, as you can see, we have a nice little box to edit our stream info and to maximize our visibility inside. So what I want to do now is go outside of this div, which wraps the h2 and the paragraph, and I'm going to add a model button, right? And now I want to go outside of this div here, and I want to add a separator, and I don't think we have that. So let's go inside of our terminal and let's add npx chatcnui latest add separator, like this. So make sure you add the separator to your project, and then you can include the separator from /UI separator, like this, and I'm going to change it to use the components, like that. Right, we are here, and below that open up a new div with a class name p4lgp6 space y4, like that. And then we're simply going to create an empty div, and inside we're going to render all the information we have about the stream. So let's create an h3 element which is going to render the stream name and give it a class name. It's actually going to be a label which says name, right? So hard-coded, and give it a text small, text muted foreground, and margin bottom of 2. And then below that, we're going to have a paragraph which renders the value of the stream. And give this a class name of text small and font semi-bold, like this. Great. And now you should see this, the name, and it says Antonio's stream, like that. And now I want to go ahead and copy and paste this div which holds h3 and the paragraph and paste it below here. And in this one, we're not going to render the name, but the thumbnail, like that. And all I'm going to do is, instead of this paragraph, I'm going to check if we have the thumbnail URL. We're going to go ahead and render a div with a class name relative aspect video, rounded and the overflow hidden, width of 200 pixels, border and border white /10. And inside we're going to render image from next/image, so make sure you import that. And since we don't have anything in our database regarding the thumbnail URL, you're not going to be able to see this. But don't worry, we're now going to create a model to modify this so we can actually upload an image. Let's give this a source of thumbnail URL. And let's give it an alt of name of the stream. Like that. Great, so now we have our stream info here, and you can see the thumbnail here is empty, right? So exactly what we need. And now we have to create a button that when we click on it, it opens a model where we can modify our stream settings. So now let's go and find this comment which we left to add a model button, and let's replace it with an info model component like this, which currently does not exist. And let's pass in some information. So initial name is name, and initial thumbnail URL is thumbnail URL, like this. And now go inside of the stream player here and create a new file, info-model.tsx, like that. Let's mark this as use client. And let's create an interface, info model props. And it's going to accept the, initial name, right? Which is a string, and initial thumbnail URL, which is string or null, because this is optional, right? Now let's export const info model, and let's return a div info model here. And let's go ahead and assign the props info model props. Now we can go back inside of the info card, and you can import info model from /info model. And all you should see now is the text which says info model. So let me show you that here. There we go, just a big text which says info model. So we're now going to change this to be a button which opens the model. So for that, we're going to need to import a couple of stuff from our add components UI dialog component, which we already have installed because we use the dialog to generate our ingress and stream keys. So you should already be having this. If by any chance you don't, you have to run npx ShadCN UI latest add dialog. Let's import dialog close, dialog content, dialog header, dialog title, and dialog trigger, and make sure that you don't misspell this like this. Great. And now what we can do, let's also just add a button because I know we're gonna need it. So button from ./UI button, but I will change it to components. So go ahead and replace the div to render a dialog, and go ahead and change this to use the dialog trigger. Give it an asChild property because it's going to be wrapping a button, and now render that button inside and say edit, and give this button a variant of link, a size of small, and a class name of ML auto, like this. And now this should look better. There we go. So we have our edit, and when we click on it, it's going to open a model to edit the information. Outside of the dialog trigger, add a dialog content. Inside, add a dialog header, and then a dialog title, and render edit stream info inside of the title like this. And now when you click on your edit button, it should open a model which says edit stream info. Great, so now we can go ahead and add some more stuff. So I believe we need one more thing from ShadCN UI here, npx ShadCN UI at latest add label. I'm not sure if we have this. Maybe we do. I don't think we do. All right. So let's go ahead and now let's import the label component from .UI label, and let's import the input component from .UI input. And I'm already gonna go ahead and replace this from add/components instead, like this. Great. Now let's go below the dialog header and let's render a native HTML form element, and let's give it a class name of spacey14. And now let's create a div here with a class name of spacey2, let's go ahead and let's render the label, which is going to say name. And then below that, we're going to have our input component with a placeholder of stream name. On change for now is going to be an empty arrow function, value of name, and disabled for now is going to be false. And looks like I did something wrong with the name prop. Oh, I did not extract this. All right, so this is going to be initial name here. And we're going to go ahead and store our name in a state so we can optimistically update it. So go ahead and import useState from React. And let's prepare this. So const name set name is going to be useState, and the default value will be initial name, like this. And now we have the name here, and we can safely render that as the value of this input right here. Great. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead outside of this div, but inside of this form, and I want to render another div with a class name of flex and justify between, and I want to render the dialog close, which is going to have a prop as child, because again it's going to wrap around a button which will say cancel. Give this button a type of button because it's inside of a form, so we have to explicitly define its function, and give it a variant of ghost, like that. And alongside the dialog close, another button here which is going to say save, and give this button a variant of primary and a type of submit. And let's also give it a disabled of false for now. We're going to change this later. So now what should happen is that you should have an input which tells you what's the name of the stream, and you have options to close the model or to save the model. What we have to do now is we have to create an action which is going to appear here when we, well, first we have to actually control the value, right? So let's do that first. Let's do the onChange here. So I'm going to go ahead and create const onChange to accept an event of react.change event, change event, specifically HTML input element, like this. And let's just do set name event target value, like this. And then we can use that onChange and replace it here. So just pass in onChange, like that. Great. So now we have that. What I want to do now is I want to create an onSubmit function here, which accepts the event, which is a type of react.form event, and accepts the HTML form element. And now let's do prevent default here. And what I want to do now is import use transition from React. So we already have that. So let's add it here at the top. And I'm going to go ahead and use that here. So use transition, and let's extract is pending and start transition. And then in here, we can use start transition. And we can simply call update stream from actions stream. So we already have this action. The reason we have it is because we use it to change those values. Is chat enabled? Is chat followers only? And in here, we already prepared that name is one of the values we will be able to modify using this server action. So this is actually ready for us to use. We don't even have to create anything. So inside of the update stream, let's go ahead and pass in the value, which is an object of name, which equals name. And now let's go ahead and write a couple of success messages. So .then is simply going to say toast from Sonar. So make sure you import this package. I'm going to move it here. So toast.success stream updated, and catch is going to be toast.error. Something went wrong, like this. And now let's use this onSubmit by adding it to our native form onSubmit, like this. And this should already be working. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this, and I'm going to click edit here once it loads. And I'm going to change this to something else, and I'm going to click save. And we forgot to add the pending states, but I think this should already be working, and it is. Now here it says something else, and here it says something else. Great. So now what I want to do is I want to use this is pending prop here, and I want to disable the input while that is working on. So yeah, we already have it hard-coded. So remove the hard-coded one, and let's do it here is pending for the save button. And if you try again, it should be a better experience, because now another change, and when I click, or you can click enter, and there we go, this is disabled and the button is disabled. Perfect. And one more thing I want to do is I want to close the model once this finishes. For that I need to import two things from React, use ref and element ref from React. And let's go ahead and add const close ref to be use ref with the default value of null, and its specific type will be the element ref, specifically button, like this. And now let's go ahead and let's assign this close ref to our dialog close component. So find the dialog close and give it the property ref of close ref. And now let's extend this .then. So not only does it show the toast message, but it also closes the ref, right? So what I want to do is write close ref current click. And now we should have an even better experience. So 1, 2, 3, I click save, and there we go. You can see how it updates in real time. Perfect. So what we have to do now is we have to go ahead and implement upload thing so that we can upload a nice image here. So I want you to go to uploadthing.com or just Google upload thing and go ahead and sign in. And in here you can see that I already have a couple of projects. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is click create a new app, and I'm going to give this app a name, GameHub. We can leave the app URL empty and just click create app like this. Great. What I want to do now is go inside of my API keys, and I want to go ahead and copy both of this. So let's go ahead and copy that, and let's go inside of our .environment file here. After we add LiveKit, let's add upload thing secret and upload thing app ID. So make sure you have those. And now let's go in the overview, and let's go ahead and click read more for the getting started. So in here, you can of course read more about how upload thing works, what it is exactly, and all the stuff it does for you. So the reason I like it is it's extremely fast to implement. Of course, it will be interesting to see how we could implement S3 directly, but this is already a 12-hour tutorial, so this just saves me a lot of time, and it's completely open source, and you don't require a credit card, whereas with AWS, you do require a credit card, right? So it allows more viewers to do this. And to be honest, it's simply amazing. So you're going to see how it's going to generate type-safe components for us based on the routers, which we will define on our backend, right? So that's something that other upload providers don't do, right? And this is open source, and it does that. And it was created by a person you might know called Theo. You might even follow him on YouTube. So let's go ahead and click on the sidebar, getting started, Next.js, and we are using the app folder, so let's click here. So we have a command to run, so let's go ahead and copy this, and let's go ahead inside of our terminal here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and paste that. Let me expand my screen as much as I can. So we are doing npm install upload thing and add upload thing /react. So make sure you add those two packages, and let's leave that to install. Now it says to add the environment variables. So we already did that, so we didn't have to. And now we have to set up a file router. So for that, we can simply copy this entire function, and then we're gonna go ahead and modify it. So it says to create it in app API upload thing core.ts. So let's go ahead and create that exact folder structure. So I'm going to close everything. Let's go inside of app API. Let's create a new folder, upload thing, and let's create a file core.ts, and inside I'm gonna paste this entire code snippet that you can see from the documentation here. You can of course visit my GitHub directly if for any reason this has changed in the future. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get rid of all the comments because we're gonna go ahead and modify this, and it's just gonna be easier to look at this, at least for me, right? For this video, I mean, right? Okay, so I just got rid of all the comments, and I'm actually gonna go ahead and get rid of this function. So I'm just gonna go ahead and have this empty our file router. And first thing that I want to do is get rid of this out function because, you know, it's a fake out function. And what I want to do now is add a thumbnail uploader here, which is going to be function from create upload thing here. And it's going to accept a single image. And let's give it a max file size of 4 megabytes. And let's give it a max file count 1, like this. So make sure you have these 2 items inside of your thumbnail file uploader config. And let me just collapse this even further just so it looks a bit better, like this. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's chain this with a middleware here. So inside of the middleware, it's going to be an asynchronous function in which we're going to get self from await get self from libout service. So make sure you import libout service at the top here. And now let's go ahead and let's also extract the metadata and the file from this asynchronous function. Sorry, no, that doesn't exist here. My apologies. So middleware is just empty like this, and we just return user self like that. And then let's chain on upload complete like this, and that is going to be asynchronous. And that is going to have the metadata and the file like this. So let's go ahead and create this function here. We're going to do something very simple. We're simply going to update the stream based on the user in the middleware. So await db.stream.update, and we have to import db. So let's import db from /libdb. Let's pass in the where to be user ID from metadata.user.id, and let's change the data thumbnail URL to be file.url, like this. And now we choose what to return back to the client. So I'm going to return an object file URL to be file.url, like this. There we go. We created our own upload endpoint, right? So let's see what we have to do next. So we just finished this. And now it tells us to create a Next.js API route using the file router. So it tells us to create that in the upload thing folder route.ts. So let's copy this simple snippet from here. And let's go inside of upload thing and create a new file route.ts, and let's paste this here like that. And we already have .core, so no issues here. Perfect. So make sure this is your upload thing route.ts file. And now we have to add upload things styles. So make sure you select the tab Tailwind like this. And now we have to revisit our tailwind.config.ts like this. So if you follow the instructions from the beginning of the video, you should only have one file, tailwind.config.ts, like this. So if you have 2 files, here's what you can do. You can simply go inside of my GitHub, copy this entire file, paste it in tailwind.config.ts, and remove your other file. You can simply do that. But if you follow the instructions in the beginning, where we resolved a little conflict with chatcn and Tailwind, you should only have one file. So now I want to add this import here. So upload thing /tailwind. And now we have to go ahead and wrap our entire project in that. I mean, our entire config in that. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap the entire thing here, and go all the way to the bottom and add an end line here, like this. And this is something that happens in your keyframes. You're now going to have this error. But here's the thing, we don't use any components which needs this. So I'm pretty sure this is something that might be resolved soon. I don't know what this is, to be honest. but we can simply remove the keyframes object like this. And then we can also remove the animation because those two are connected like this. And that's it. That's all we need. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's create the upload thing components. So inside of source utils upload thing, I'm going to use the lib folder instead. So I'm going to copy this simple snippet and I'm going to go inside of my lib and I'm going to create upload thing.ts and I'm going to paste a simple snippet here. And I will replace this whatever this is, with @ because that's our alias, like this. So @API, app API, upload thing core, which we just created recently. You can even hold Control or Command and click on it and it should open your file router. Make sure you save this file. And now we have 3 new components which are type safe against our file router, meaning that they're gonna have sense of this information, like our thumbnail uploader and our image configuration. Great. So what I wanna do now is I want to go back inside of our info model. So app folder, components, stream player, and in here we should have the info model where we added an input to change our state here. And what I want to do now is, just as we created a state for our name, let's copy and paste this one and make it thumbnail URL. And let's change this to set thumbnail URL. And let's use the initial thumbnail. Do we have it here? Oh, I forgot to extract it from the props, like this, initial thumbnail URL, and just paste that here. Great. So now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and import upload drop zone from that lib that we just created. So let's go ahead and let's import upload drop zone, not from upload thing React, but from @/lib upload thing, because that's our abstraction around upload thing. So make sure you do this import. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and find where we have this div which wraps the label and the input, and go outside of it and open a new div like this and write a class name again, space y2, render a label and write thumbnail. And then below that, let's go ahead and let's render our drop zone. First, I want to wrap it inside of a div, which has a class name of rounded extra large, border, outline dashed, and outline muted like this. And now let's render the upload drop zone, which we imported from the lib folder. And here's the cool thing, we can pass the endpoint now, and as you can see, it auto-completes to our thumbnail uploader, which is defined all the way in our API, so we completely own this endpoint. And now let's give it an appearance prop, and let's change the label to use the color FFF. Let's go ahead and write allowed content to use the color FFF as well. And let's pass in the prop on client upload complete. Let's get the response. Let's do set thumbnail URL to be response first in the array .url, and let's do router.refresh. So we have to add the router. So import use router from next navigation, and let's go ahead and add the router. So const router use router. And then simply here in the thumbnail, let's go ahead and render router.refresh here. Like this. Great. So I believe already everything should be working. I think we've finished the entire thing. So yeah, this should be it. Let's go ahead and refresh this. And when I go ahead and click on edit here, it's loading, and there we go. We can choose our files to upload. And what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and open my terminal, and I'm going to run npx Prisma Studio. So npx Prisma Studio, make sure this is open. And now if you look at your stream model, both of your streams should have no thumbnail URL. So go ahead and upload an image. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select a specific image from here. All right. So I just took a random screenshot, and let's click upload one file, and let's wait for this to upload. And perhaps it's not gonna work now, and that's because we forgot to do one thing, and that is to add this to the middleware. So let's go ahead. So yours is probably stuck on loading as well, and I believe we might have an error. We do, right? So we have an error here in our terminal. So let's do the following. Let's go inside of our middleware, and alongside these two routes, let's add /API/upload thing. Like this. And then let's go ahead and refresh this page, and let's try uploading a thumbnail one more time. So I'm gonna click here. I'm gonna go ahead and select a random screenshot that I took here. And now it should be working. So after this uploads, it should just reset to the initial state, I believe. There we go. And I also have a little error here. So we're gonna resolve both of that. But first, I wanna go ahead and refresh my Prisma Studio, and in here I now have a thumbnail URL. So it's successfully uploaded. Great. And you can see the exact process inside of app folder API upload thing core right here. You can see that once the upload is complete, we use that file and we update the stream in our database using the currently logged in user. So the user doesn't have to even confirm that, right? We immediately save the image. So this way we reduce the amount of uploads and we immediately use them. And now we have to resolve this little error here. So look at this error, if you even have it, right? If you don't, just follow along and do what I do. But if you have this error, go ahead and look at this specific host name. In my case is utfs.io, and go ahead and copy this host name right here. And you're gonna have to go inside of your next config. So let's go inside of next.config.js, and above Webpack add images, domains, and just render one of those like this. And now what I recommend you do is that you shut down your terminal where you do npm run dev and do npm run dev again like this. And just refresh this. And what we're gonna do now is we're going to render that image. So head back inside of components, stream player, and you should have the info model here. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna make this dynamic. So there we go, you should already see it here, right? In here, it already appears and it looks like it's a bit stretched. So let's go ahead and find not the info model, but info card, and find where you render the thumbnail and go ahead and give it a class name of object cover like this. And there we go, now it looks just a tiny bit better. Go back inside of the info model now. And now what I want to do is I want to make this dynamic, right? So I'm going to go ahead below this label and I'm going to wrap this entire thing in a ternary. So if we have thumbnail URL, which we store inside of our state here. So if we have thumbnail URL, we're going to go ahead and render one thing. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead, and render this, right? So this entire div which holds the drop zone like that. And in here, we're gonna go ahead and render a div with a class name, relative, aspect, video, rounded XL, overflow hidden, border, and border dash white /10. And let's do a div with a class name, absolute, top 2, right 2, and Z10, like that. And now let's go ahead and let's render a hint component. So make sure you import that from /hint or /components hint. I'm just gonna move it here. So let's go back inside of this first ternary and let's give this hint a label, remove thumbnail. And let's give it an asChild property and side left. Now let's go ahead and render a button component inside, which is going to be our trash icon from Lucid React. So make sure you import trash from Lucid React. I'm just going to move it here. And let's go ahead and give this trash a class name h4 and width of 4. Let's give this a type of button. Disabled is going to be is pending. Let's give it an onClick for now to be an empty arrow function. And let's give it a class name of hAuto and width of auto and p1.5, like that. And then outside of this div, which just wrapped that little hint and our delete button, we're going to go ahead and render that image. So make sure you import the image from next/image. I'm going to move that to the top here. All right, and let's go ahead and give it a source of thumbnail URL. Let's go ahead and give it an alt of thumbnail. Let's give it a fill property and class name object cover, like this. And let's try this out now. So when I go ahead and click on edit, there we go. I have a nice little delete button and I have a render of my image, which I uploaded. So now we have to create this remove a thumbnail function. So let's go ahead and create a server action to remove a thumbnail. So I'm gonna go ahead and go inside. Maybe we can actually reuse stream. Perhaps we can do that as well. Let's try it out. Let's do thumbnail URL to be values.thumbnail URL, like that. Let's try and add that to our valid data inside of our stream actions. So I'm going to attempt something here. So if we send undefined, that's simply not going to pass that to be updated. But I think that if we send null, that then it should be changed to null, but I'm not entirely sure. We're going to try it out now. So let's go inside of stream player. We have the info model component. And now we're going to create this, which is currently empty, right? So just as we created our onSubmit function, let's create const onRemove thumbnail. Let's just call it onRemove. And in here, I'm going to call it start transition. So we already have that, right? So we can reuse it from this is pending and start transition. And let's call update stream. And I'm going to pass in the thumbnail URL, not to be undefined, but to be null specifically. So let's see if that's going to work. And let's add a toast.success thumbnail removed. And let's add .catch toast.error something went wrong, like that. And now let's copy the onRemove here and let's put it in place of our trash button here. So onRemove. And I'm really interested to see what's going to happen now. So in here, in my Prisma Studio, I have a thumbnail URL for my stream. And if I click here, let's see if that's going to remove the thumbnail or not. So after I refresh, oh, it looks like it does remove it. So let's go ahead and refresh this just to confirm. And it did remove it. Great. So that now works. But you saw that in here, the thumbnail stayed. So what we can do here is we can extend our .then for the onRemove like this. And we can go ahead and do set thumbnail to be an empty string, like that. And we can also go ahead and do, well, we can close the dialog, right? Because this kind of counts as a save action. So yeah, I'm going to do this. So close ref, current, click, like that. So let's try this again. I'm going to go ahead and refresh everything here. Okay, let me expand this. I'm going to click on edit. I'm going to go ahead and upload my screenshot here. I'm uploading the screenshot. And now this should go without any errors here, I hope. There we go. And let's go ahead and close this. So it's right here. Great. Let's go ahead and refresh this. There we go. It's still here. And now let's try and removing this thumbnail. And that should close the model. And there we go. It closes this as well. And we can also close the model once we upload the thumbnail, because that's also practically a save action. We know that it's immediately in the database. So not to confuse our users that they have to click save. So let's go ahead inside of our drop zone. And in here we call router.refresh. Let's also do close ref current click. like this. And let's go ahead and try this one more time. So we wrap this module up. So I'm going to upload an image. I'm going to click upload one file. And once it uploads, it should close the model immediately. Let's see if it is. And there we go. We now have our stream thumbnail, and the same experience is if we remove the thumbnail, because that is reflected in the database in real time. Perfect. So now you have the ability to change the name of the stream and to add a thumbnail. What we're going to build next is the About You card, where you can modify your user's bio. So there is one thing left for us to create inside of the stream player component, and that is the About You card. So let's go back inside of our stream player folder and find the index component. And I'm going to close everything but that. And we're going to go and find our last component, which was the info card. And now we're going to create the about card. Let's go ahead and pass this about card some props. So host name is going to be user username. We're going to have host identity, which is going to be user ID. We're going to have viewer identity to be the identity like this. Bio is going to be user.bio. And also one more thing that I want to add here is followed by count. And in order to get this followed by count, we have to go ahead and extend our user module right here. So let's go ahead and see what we have to do. First, I want to go ahead and see where we actually use this stream player, right? So we use that inside of dashboard view, username, home page, right? And in here we have our user. So this user should be giving us the count of their followers, right? And we have this function get user by username. So let's go inside of this function. You can find it inside of the lib folder, user service. And in here you should have get user by username. And now what I want to do here is I want to go inside of the include, and I want to add underscore count like this, select, followed by true like this. So I'm going to count all of my followers for this user. And what I can do then is now you can see that in my creator page, so in dashboard view, username, home page, when I hover over this user, so we have the stream, yes, but we also have a count. So now in my stream player component, let me go ahead and modify the user expected prop here, right? Because no longer are we just expecting this, we are also expecting a count. So let me go ahead and collapse this element like this, and I'm going to add underscore count followed by is a number like this. And you can see that in my dashboard view username home page, I have no errors regarding that because it is a correct type. I have a count here and I am rendering the count here. So just make sure that you've added this underscore count inside the include in get user by username in the user service, and make sure that you've modified the user property inside of stream player props inside of the stream player folder index.tsx. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and replace this number 0 well with the actual value, right? So user._count followed by like this. Great. And now what we have to do is we have to go ahead and create the about card. So I'm going to go inside of the stream player folder and create a new file about-card.tsx. Let's mark this as use client, and let's export const about card, and let's return a div about card. And while we are here, I'm already going to go ahead and prepare my interface about card props, and let's go ahead and make it accept the host name, which is a string, the host identity, which is a string as well, viewer identity, which is a string, bio, which is a string or null, and followed by count, which is a number. And now I'm just going to go ahead and assign the props, so about card props, and I should no longer be having any errors here. And let's go ahead and import about card, and there we go. So just make sure you've imported about card the same way we did with info card, chat toggle, chat video, and header. Now let's go ahead and focus on the about card here. So I'm gonna go ahead and extract host name, host identity, viewer identity, bio, and followed by count. And now we're gonna go ahead and do that quick check to see whether we are the host or not. So const host as viewer, open backticks, oops, is host dash and then host identity. And then const is host is gonna be viewer identity equals host as viewer, like this. And let's go ahead and write const followed by label to be followed by count equals 1. In that case, we're gonna say follower, otherwise followers. Great, and now let's go ahead and give this a class name of px4. Let's go ahead and write an inner div, and let's give it a class name of group, rounded extra large, bg background, padding of 6, LG padding of 10, flex dash col, gap y3. Then inside, we're gonna go ahead and open a div with a class name of flex, items center, and justify between. And then inside, we're gonna render a div which is going to say about host name, and it's also going to hold the verified mark which we created. So import verified mark. I'm gonna change this to use add/components like that, and let's give this div a class name of flex item center, gap x of 2, font semi-bold, text large, and on LG text 2XL. Like this. There we go. So let's go ahead and take a look at this now. There we go. It looks okay on mobile, and on desktop, there we go. It's an even bigger screen, right? And this will not, this edit your stream info will not be visible for the viewer, right? So the viewer will see this presentational bio, right? All right, now let's go ahead and continue developing this. So we have this verified mark, and now what I want to do is go outside of this div which holds this text and the verified mark, and we're gonna go ahead and only if is host, we're gonna go ahead and for now I'll just write a paragraph here and write edit. Later, of course, it's gonna be an actual button. So now outside of that div, let's go ahead and open a new one and give it a class name of text small and text muted foreground, and let's write a span followed by count, and then a space followed by label, like this. And now what I want you to do is just give this span a class name, font semi-bold, and text primary, like this. There we go. So now it should look something like this. So you can see it says 0 followers and the number of followers should be bold, like that. Great, so we resolved our followers here. And last thing we have to do is go outside of this div here and simply render our bio, or we're gonna give it a default of this user prefers to keep an air of mystery about them, or you can just write no description, right? And give that paragraph a class name of text small, right? There we go. So let me just, can I improve this a little bit? I don't like that it's like this. There we go. So just make sure you have this space next to span, because if you don't, then you can see that the text for the followers will be joined like this, 0 followers. So we don't want that. So just make sure that you add a little space here, or you can even add it here. There we go. So now we have the presentational component here for our user's bio, right? And now we're gonna go ahead and create the actual model, which will open, which will allow us to modify the user. So what I want to do first is I want to create the server action to allow the update of our bio, right? So make sure you've saved everything in the stream player, make sure you have your about card. And now inside of the actions, let's create a new one called user.ts. Let's not forget to mark this as use server at the top, otherwise it will not work. And now let's export const update user to be an asynchronous function which accepts the values which are a partial of our user from Prisma client, like this. And now I'm gonna go ahead and open a try and catch here, and inside of here I will simply throw new error, internal error. And let's go ahead here and first let's do const self to be await get self from the auth service. So let me just align these imports properly. Now that I have self, I'm going to go ahead and define the valid data for updating this user. So that's only going to be bio and values.bio. So I will not allow the change of username here because we have clerk to handle that, right? We handle that inside of our webhook, but bio does not exist in clerk. So that's why we update that ourselves. And that's why that is the only thing we allow to be updated using this server action. And now let's go ahead and write const user to be await db. So make sure you add db from @/libdb dot user dot update, where id is self.id and data is simply a spread of valid data like this. And now let's call revalidate path from next cache. So make sure you've added this. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to revalidate the path open backticks u/self.username. And we're also going to revalidate directly /username because the owner of the stream is going to be able to modify their bio from both of these routes. So we want to make sure that they can immediately see the changes. And let's return the user. Like this. And I actually believe we don't need to wrap this inside of try catch at all, right? I think this is even simpler. Yeah, no need to do that. Okay, now that we have this, we can go ahead and create our bio model. So inside of the components stream player, I'm going to go ahead and create a new file bio model.tsx. I'm going to mark it as use client. And I'm simply going to export const bio model to be a return div, and let's just say edit. So it's going to represent that button that we have. So go back inside of the about card, and now what I want you to do is replace this paragraph with a bio model from /bio model like this. And let's also go ahead and give it an initial value of our current bio, which we also use to render here. Great. Now let's go back inside of the bio model, and what we have to do is go create an interface so it can accept those props. So bio model props has the initial value, which is a string, and let's go ahead and assign those. So bio model props, and there we go. Initial value, oh, it's string or null. So string or null. And there we go. Now make sure you've imported bio model from /bio model. Make sure you've added it here and passed the initial value, which in our case is empty because we don't have any bio by default. And now I want to go ahead and import everything we need from @components UI dialog like this. So we need the dialog itself, dialog close, dialog content, dialog header, dialog title, and dialog trigger like this. Great. So, and we're of course also gonna need our button component. So let's add the button here as well. And now let's create this little dialog here. So it's gonna be dialog like that, and then it's gonna have a trigger. Let's give it an asChild property because it's going to be wrapping a button component, which will say edit. Let's go ahead and give it a variant of link. a size of small, and a class name of ML Auto. And now it should look exactly as in your item above. As you can see here, it should be a big edit button. Perfect. But only visible if you are the host, right? And now in here, let's add the dialog content. Let's add the dialog header and the dialog title, which will render edit user bio. And when you click on this, there we go, a model which says edit user bio. Perfect. So I want to go ahead inside of my terminal now, and I want to add a package from Shadcn UI called text area. So let's go ahead and add text area. All right. Let's go ahead and import everything else we need from here. So we're also going to need our hint component. We are going to need this newly added text area from /UI text area. So let's go ahead and replace those to come from components instead. All right, and let's go ahead just below our dialog header, but still inside of the content, and let's add a native form element. Let's go ahead and give it on submit of an empty arrow function and the class name of spacey4. And now inside, let's render the text area component, which we imported. Placeholder is going to be user bio. On change is going to be an empty arrow function. Value is going to be our value or an empty string. So let's go ahead and do the following. Let's extract the initial value, and we're going to store our in a state value set value use state from React initial value, like that. Or we can do it like this: initial value or an empty string here, and make sure you've imported use state from React. And because we do this pipe operation here, we don't need to do it here, I believe. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we have the value. Disable prop is later going to come from the pending state, and class name for this will be resize none, because I don't want there to be a little button that you can resize the text area. So now you should have a text area here which says user bio, like that. Now inside of the form below the text area, let's add a div with a class name of flex justify between. And inside of it, let's add our dialog close component with a button component inside, which has an explicit type of button, so it doesn't accidentally submit our form, and a variant of ghost. And it will say cancel. Outside of the dialog close, we're going to have another button, which will say save. And let's go ahead and give it a disabled prop of false, a type of submit, and a variant of primary, like this. Great. And what we have to do now is we have to create our simple onChange function here. So we can do that here in this text area. Let's get the event, and let's simply call set value to be event.target.value, right? No need to be more complicated than this. And now let's create this onSubmit function. So in order to do that, I'm already gonna go ahead and prepare the use transition, and we're gonna need use ref and element ref. So make sure you imported this stuff from React. And now let's go ahead and create our onSubmit function. So const onSubmit here. And before we do it, let's go ahead and just do is pending and start transition from use transition, so I don't forget to do that. All right. So the event is going to be a type of React.form event HTML form element, like this. Let's make sure to do event prevent default. And now let's start a transition here. And what we're going to call is update user from actions user. So what we created just a couple of moments ago. So let me move this here. Just make sure that you have the update user import. And I don't think we need the hint. So just make sure you have update user from actions user, which we created a moment ago. All right, now inside of the bio model, inside of this update user, we're gonna go ahead and pass in bio to the value which we control using our input, and it has the initial state as well. Great, and now I wanna do .then, and I'm gonna go ahead and call the toast from Sonar, so make sure you add the Sonar package. Let's do toast.success, user bio updated, we can do that, .catch, toast.error, something went wrong, like this, and let's go ahead and apply this on submit right here on this on submit. And I believe you should already be able to change your bio. So right now it says this user prefers to keep an air of mystery about them because that's what we hard-coded if there is no bio. So now if I change to my bio and click save, let's see if that's gonna work. And there we go, now it says my bio. Perfect, so now we have to add some loading states, some disabled states, right? So we're gonna go ahead and use this is pending right here, and we're gonna disable the text area if it's pending. We're gonna go ahead and disable the button to save if it's pending. And one more thing that I wanna do is I wanna add my close ref to be use ref element ref button with a default value of null. So make sure you have both useRef and elementRef imported from React. Then assign this closeRef to the dialog close, which should also have as child property because it's wrapping a button. So go ahead and give it a ref of closeRef. And then inside of here, I'm going to do closeRef.current. Click like this, and that should close the model. So if I go ahead now and modify my bio and click on save, this should save, close the model and save my bio. And there we go, we've wrapped up our stream player component. What we have to do now is we have to apply the stream player component to not only be visible in the creator dashboard, but instead I want it to be visible when I click on some user in my recommended tab, so I can actually see them streaming instead of this right here. So we're gonna go ahead and see if we have any outstanding bugs with our stream player component. So what we have to do now is we have to use that stream player component and add it so that it appears when a random user clicks on a specific user's ID like this. So right now we have this little screen. So what I want you to do is I want you to prepare two browsers. In one browser, make sure that you're logged in and make sure that you have access to this dashboard from where you have set up your stream key, so that when you click start streaming in the OBS, this should stay connected like that. So make sure you're logged in one browser as that, and then go in another browser and make sure you're logged out. You can do that by going in the incognito mode. So, right, so if you try just in a new tab, that's gonna log you out from everywhere. So make sure that you have two browsers, one in incognito and one logged in. And now if in incognito mode, you try and click on any of the users here, you can see that it leads us to the login screen. So we don't want that to happen. So what we have to do is we have to go inside of our middleware. So let's find our middleware.vs file here, and we have to add /username like this with the colon here, and that's going to allow logged out users from for clicking on this specific user. We just have to refresh this. Let's try now, and there we go. You can see that now it still works, even though this information well, I don't know if how much of this information is true because we are logged out completely. So what I want to do now is I want to go inside of my app folder, browse username page.tsx right here, and I want to go ahead and completely remove this, and let's just add a div saying username page like that. And in fact, you know what, let's remove everything just so we can do it one more time together so you can understand what's going on here. So inside of this user page, we are inside of the username folder, right? So inside of the browse folder, we have the username folder and then page.tsx, which means that we have access to that username in our URL params. And that means that we can go ahead and get the user using await get user by by username from our lib user service. So let's pass inside params.username like this. And this function will return the user, but also the relation to the stream. So we can write if there is no user from the database, or if this user has no stream for any reason, we're going to return not found from next navigation. So that's going to immediately redirect us to the not found screen, like this. And this will prevent anything else from being rendered. So you don't have to put return here. That does it automatically for us. Great. And now what we have to do is we have to check if we are following this user and if we are blocked by this user. So let's write const is following to be await is following user from the follow service and pass in the params, the user.id, and let's do const is blocked to be await is blocked by user and pass in the user.id. So ensure that you have is following user and is blocked by user from lib blocked service. And then go ahead and write if is blocked. In that case, we are also going to throw a not found, so the user can never have access to this user's stream. And now what I want to do is simply render the stream player from components stream player, so make sure you add this import. And now we have to pass some props here. So let's give it a user, which is a user. Let's give it a stream, which is user.stream. And let's give it is following, which is going to be is following constant. Like this. And now what should happen is that in your incognito mode, you should be seeing this screen. You can try on some another user and you can see that we have their information here. Great. So now we reuse that entire stream component. We can still collapse the entire thing here. Amazing. Everything works great. What I want to try now is start the live stream. So let's go ahead and start the live stream and let's see if this incognito user will be immediately connected, and they are. Great. And now what I want you to do is confirm inside of your chat settings, so going to create your dashboard where you're logged in, and make sure to turn off must be following to chat. So make sure that this is turned off, and then that will allow the guest to send messages. So let's see if that is working, because we didn't have a chance to try it out. Besides, we only sent one message, right? But that was ourselves. So let's see if other user can send. So I'm gonna write hello, I am a guest. Like this. And there we go. It's working. A guest has sent a message and it was immediately received here. So I'm gonna write hello, I am Antonio, like this. And there we go. They are now chatting. Perfect. And you can see in incognito mode right here, I can take a look at the community here, but I have no actions here. But if I go inside of the stream chat here, you can see that we have a block button here. And there seems to be a little bug here with multiple participants, but I think it could be just some cache. There we go. Yeah, when I refreshed, it finished. Okay, it's not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead, and if it appears again, I'm going to go and debug it, but I think it was just a one-off thing. So what you have to realize now is that inside of the creator, we have the option to block this user. But if you try this now, it's actually not going to work. The reason it's not going to work is because this user is not logged in. So we cannot actually block them from the database. So what we have to do is we have to go inside of our block action. So go inside of actions, block right here, and we have to extend this to do this, well, to do's which we've written right here. So what I want to do is I want to add my logged in user. So const self to be await get self from the auth service. So make sure you add this. And then I'm going to dynamically get this blocked user, because if we try and block a user just by their ID, it could be that it is just a guest, right? And let's take a look at our token action. You can see that in here, where is it? There we go. So in here, if the user is not logged in, we just generate a random ID using the UUID package, right? And we generate a random name for them. So when we try and block that in our database, it cannot find that user because it doesn't exist, right? So here's what we're going to do instead. We're going to dynamically get the blocked user. So let blocked user, we're going to define it first like this. And then we're going to wrap this inside of inside of a try and catch function like that. And in here, in the catch, we're just going to write a comment. This means user is a guest. So if this function fails, we're going to assume that that's because the user is a guest and we cannot find them in the database. So next thing that I want to do is I want to get my room service so I can actually kick the participant if I cannot actually block them. And we can, I believe, get the room service from our ingress.ts function. Yes, there we go. Here we have the room service. So go ahead and copy and paste this. So go inside of your ingress.ts and copy the room service. And we use the room service here in the reset ingress, which we fire every time someone tries to generate a new key, right? So make sure you copy the room service, go back inside of the block function, and just paste that here. And you can import the room service client from LiveKit server SDK. And make sure that you have all of these keys. You can always double check in your environment that you haven't misspelled anything. Great, and now that you have the room service, you can go ahead here, and before you revalidate the path, what you can do is open up another try and catch block here, and inside of the try, write await room service dot remove participant. And this remove participant is a function which first needs to accept the room from where we are planning to remove a participant, and then in the second argument it accepts the identity of that participant. So what do we know about our rooms? How do we know which is the room that we are trying to kick the user from? Well, if you remember our ingress action in here, when we go ahead and actually create the ingress, you can see that a room name is self.id, which means that what we have to pass in the first argument for the room ID is self.id. That is our room. And in the second argument, we have to pass in the ID which we are trying to kick. So this function will work for both logged in and logged out users because we don't care about the database. We just care about the currently connected users. And since this user has a viewer token created with their ID, we can kick them out of the room. And there is a chance that this fails as well, and that most likely means user is not in the room, right? So this function can fail as well, so that's why we wrap it inside of a try and catch. And then what I actually want to revalidate is the following. So I don't need to revalidate the blocked user here. Instead, I'm just going to go ahead and revalidate /u self.username/community, which we are going to create later to unblock our users, like this. So let's go ahead and try this out now. So let's refresh the creator dashboard and let's refresh this user. Make sure that you are live, make sure that you are streaming, and now go inside of the community as the creator and click the block button for the guest. And what should happen is that the guest is disconnected in real time. And you can see that it's removed from the community chat here. Great. But if they refresh, they're going to be able to join again, right? Because they're logged out users. And no matter how much we try to protect this, they can always clear their cache. They can always go in incognito mode, right? There's no way of actually preventing them from doing this. That's why we added the feature that only followers can chat. So you can always enable this as a streamer, and then when the guest joins again, they're not going to be able to bother you. If anything, they're going to be watching your stream, and well, that's a good thing for you. You're going to have more viewers. Great, so we now confirmed that this is working, but I want to check one more thing. We just confirmed what happens when a streamer is watching and when a guest is watching, but now I want to check what happens when a streamer is watching and another logged in user is watching. So in order to do that, you're probably going to have to use another browser, right? Or you can log in incognito mode, but we do use Google login, so I'm not sure if you're going to be, if you know your password, great, then you can go ahead and log in. So just make sure you are either in incognito mode and then log in as the other user here, or just use another browser. So I'm just gonna go ahead and prepare that setup. Alright, so in this browser, I'm logged in as Code with Antonio, and in another browser, I'm logged in as Antonio right here. So in this another browser, this is the user of who is currently streaming. So I can see my creator dashboard here, and this other user should just see Antonio and look at the Antonio as a viewer like this. So let's go ahead and try this out. So now it says only followers can chat. So go ahead and make sure in your chat settings that you have turned that on. And let's go ahead and see if that will be working. So right now I cannot send a message or anything, but if I go ahead and click follow, this should be revalidated, and there we go. Now I can send a message like this, and there we go. You can see how it's here in real time. Let's go ahead and try and unfollow, and now I should be blocked from sending this again. There we go. Now I cannot click here. Perfect. So what I want to try now is I want to go in chat, and I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to turn on the delay chat. So let me refresh here. And let's see if now, first of all, I have this text that messages are delayed by 3 seconds. So let's try this out. This should be delayed. And there we go. 1, 2, 3. And now it's being sent. Perfect. So we have slow mode on. But I am noticing a small little bug here. You can see that the corners of my input are rounded here. So let me quickly go ahead and see what we missed. So I believe that should be inside of the components stream player. We have chat form component in here. And the input says if is followers only, in that case rounded t. So let me go ahead, and I believe we can use something else. So we should also do if is delayed. So let's go ahead and combine those two here. So go ahead and find the input where we do the rounded t, and I'm gonna go ahead and do if is followers only, or if is delayed, then show this. And maybe we have to wrap this in parentheses like this, and now it should be better. There we go. Now this is resolved. Perfect. And it should be resolved here as well. Great. And one more thing I want to try is what happens when I turn on both of them. Now I should be getting a different message, which should say followers only and slow mode. Great. And one last thing I want to try in the chat. If I disable the chat, will that completely disable the chat? And there we go. The stream has loaded, but the chat is disabled. And if I refresh here, once the stream loads, there we go. Chat is disabled. Perfect. So we have all of that working. Let me just go ahead and enable the chat now. And now let's go ahead and try blocking this user. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh here. And this user, right in your creator dashboard, go ahead and find another user and click block. So this should immediately disconnect me, but since I'm logged in, this should also block me in the database. So when I refresh here, I should be seeing a 404 page, and I am. Great. So this is working, and now what I want to do is I want to unblock myself, but we don't have functionality for that yet. So I'm going to quickly show you. Go into NPX Prisma Studio right here, and then go inside of the block model right here, and just delete the only record you have like this. So just delete it, and now they should be unblocked. So if I go ahead and refresh again, I should be seeing this user right here. Great. So this is working perfect. So I'm going to stop streaming now. And what I want to do now is I want to add a proper loading state for this. So let's go inside of the app folder, browse username. We have page.tsx. Let's go ahead and let's add loading.tsx right here. And let's go ahead and do user loading. And we can simply return stream player skeleton. And let's go ahead and just wrap it inside of a div here. So let's write class name age full like this. So this should improve the loading state a bit. I think it already looks a bit better. There we go. Great. So now every part of our app which is loading has a loading skeleton. Great. But I want to do a couple of more things. So I want to add a custom 404 page, and I want to add a custom error page. So inside of the username, go ahead and add a new file, not-found.tsx. like this. And let's go ahead and call that not found page. Let's create a div here with a class name h_full flex call space y4 items center justify center text muted foreground. And inside, let's add an h1 element 404 and let's give it a class name of text for Excel. And below that, a paragraph, we couldn't find the user you were looking for, like that. And let's add a little apostrophe here. You can use this Unicode like that, so you don't have the error. And let's go ahead and add a button component from components UI button. Let's give it a variant of secondary as child. And let's render the link component inside from next/link. And let's write go back home. And let's give it an href of a /, like this. And you can try this out either by blocking yourself again, or more simple, you can go inside of the URL and change from the valid username to something that doesn't exist, like this. And there we go. Now we have a custom 404 page and we have a link to go back home. And I want to do one more thing. I want to create an equivalent error page. So this is going to be quite similar. So you can copy not found, paste it inside of the username here, and this time rename it to error.tsx, like this. And error has to be use client. So go ahead and add use client at the top. And let's rename this page and the default export to be error page, like this. Let's change this. Let's remove the h1. We're not going to need it. Instead, let's just render the paragraph something went wrong, like this. And if you want to try that out, go inside of an individual user profile here. And inside of page.tsx, what I want you to do is just throw an error. So throw new error test, like this, and that should trigger the error page. And there we go. You can see how we have a custom something went wrong page, and this will only show in development. So you don't have to worry about this being shown to your users. Great. So we handled that case as well. And now just remove this from the user page so you don't have that hard-coded error. Great. And now I just want to do one more thing, and that is that since we have custom error and 404 pages for this one, I want to also copy them and apply them to the entire application. So copy error and copy not found, and you're going to just paste them inside of the app folder, like this. So you should have the error and you should have the not found in the root of your application. So they are most likely not going to show, right? Because, well, you can try, let's try and trigger a not found. So I'm going to try with like multiple sub paths, like something that doesn't exist / something that doesn't exist / something that doesn't exist. And there we go. You can see how now we have a custom 404 page. Perfect. And that error page, which we copied and put in the app, is going to be a fallback if the error happens anywhere inside of our application. Great. And perhaps we can change one thing. So inside of this app folder, inside of not found, instead of telling the user that we couldn't find the user they were looking for, we can just write we couldn't find the page you were looking for, right? Because this is like a global 404, whereas this one is the user 404. So that's why we have a different text here. Great. So we just confirmed that a lot of things are working perfectly inside of our application, right? And let's also check this, right? So if I follow this user, will the number of followers increase? There we go. The number of followers increase. Great. That's one last thing that I wanted to check. Perfect. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create our home page, and then we're going to create our search page, and then let's not forget, we also have the community tab, which is just going to be a big table of all of our blocked users and the action to unblock them. So next step is the home page. So let's go ahead and let's create our homepage. So we already have some things prepared here. Inside of our app folder, inside of browse, we have a route group home and inside page.tsx. And that is this page that you're seeing right here. So what I want to do now is I want to add a limit to how wide this page can expand to. So we can do that by first giving it an hfull class, a padding of 8, and then a max width of screen to excel, and then mx auto. And what this is going to do is limit how far this screen can expand and the content inside. So focus on the text homepage here and take a look at how I expand my screen. It goes more to the left, right? But what that class name does is that when we have extremely large wide screens, you can see that at some point it stops going to the left. So I keep expanding, but the home page is no longer close to the sidebar. So that's what I want to achieve, because otherwise our grid and our columns is just going to look too big and it's impossible to keep them looking good at such a wide screen. So that's why we're going to limit to how wide we're going to support our results screen. Great. So what I want to create now is my feed service. So we can technically also hold this inside of the stream service, but I don't know, I want to keep it inside of feed service, so you can go ahead and play with it later and maybe expand it to some more functionalities. So I'm going to create feed service and I'm going to export const get streams, which is going to be an asynchronous function like this. And now let's go ahead and let's import the database from ./db, and let's import get self from the out service. And I'm just going to replace this to use /lib like this. So now let's go ahead and see if we are logged in. So we're going to attempt to fill the user ID using self. So await get self. And then I'm going to assign the user ID to be self.id, but in the catch, I'm just going to set the user ID to be null, like this. And so now we handle the case if there is a logged out person looking at this or if it is a logged in person. So now let's define our streams to be an empty array. And now I'm going to write, if we have user ID, I'm going to write a comment load by user ID, else we're going to do a very simple function here. So we're going to write streams to be equal to await database.stream find many. Let's include the user of the stream, and let's order by is live to be descending like this. And I believe we can actually combine orders. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's do an array, and then first let's do is live descending, and then let's add another one by updated at descending. So first we're going to display live streams, and then we're going to go ahead and order by which one was the latest updated. Great, and I'm gonna come back to this later because I feel like we don't need everything from the stream, right? Especially we don't need the stream key, the ingress ID, all of those confidential information. And we can also fix that, I believe, in the user service. We have get user by username, and in here we include the entire stream. So I'm gonna come back to that because I feel like it could be a security issue. But for now, let's continue doing it like this, and we're gonna come back to it. Now we have to handle the case if we are logged in. So if we are logged in, we only want to load the streams from users which have not blocked us. So we have to ensure that. So let's do streams to be await db stream find many where user is not blocking some blocked ID, user ID. So we ensure that this user, which has this stream that we are trying to query, does not have our user ID inside of a matching blocking relationship like that. So now let's go outside of where, and let's include user of that stream, and let's do the same order by. So you can copy it from here and you can paste it here like this. Great. So now we have our get streams function. Now we can go back inside of the page here, and in here I want to render my results. which I don't have yet. So inside of the home page, create a new folder underscore components and create a new file results.tsx like this. So this is going to be a server component. So let's go ahead and do, for now, just results and return a div results like this. And let's go ahead and add them here. And there we go. We should no longer be having an error. Instead, we should have a text which says results. And what I want to prepare is the skeleton. So results skeleton is very simply, for now, just going to be an empty div. And the reason I want to create it now is I don't forget it later. So let's go ahead and wrap this inside of suspense from React, and go ahead and give it a fallback to use the results skeleton like this, and make sure you import the results skeleton. Great. And now let's go inside of results and let's use that feed service. So let's turn this into an asynchronous function. And then let's write const data to be await get streams from our feed service. And then inside of here, let's go inside of this div and let's create an h2 element streams with think you, and let's add a little apostrophe here. Streams we think you'll like that. And let's give this h2 a class name of text large, font semi-bold, and margin bottom of 4 like that. And let's see if I'm getting any errors. I'm not. Great. So we have a text which says streams we think you will like. And now here I'm going to write if data.length is 0. In that case, let's go ahead and write a div no streams found and give this a class name of text muted foreground and text small. And I believe that I forgot to return something from get streams. So let's go back inside of feed service, and yes, I completely forgot to return this streams. So after we do this if clauses, just return streams at the end like that. So it's definitely going to be an array one way or another. Great, so we have get streams here. So now this should be working. Let's refresh here, and you should not be seeing this even if you don't have an active stream, because in here we simply show all streams, both offline and online. And now in here I want to go ahead and I want to create a class name grid calls 1, md grid calls 2, lg grid calls 3, xl grid calls 4, 2xl grid calls 5, and gap of 4. And let's go ahead and iterate over our data.map. Let's get the individual stream. Let's create a div here. Let's give it a key of stream.id, and let's render stream.name. And we should have 2 items here. So one is the stream that I renamed to 123, and the other one is Code with Antonio's stream, which I have not modified. Great. So now we're gonna replace this div here with a component called result card. So let me go ahead and replace this with result card like this. And let's go ahead and let's give it a key of result.id and data of let's call this result. So we have result.id and data is going to be the entire result. Now inside of components, create a new file, result card.tsx, and let's go ahead and do an interface result card props to accept data, which is a type of stream from Prisma client, and it also includes the user like this, so singular. And let's export const result card, and let's assign the props result card props, and return a div result card like this. Now go back to the results and import result card from /result card like this. Let's refresh this, and there we go. You should have 2 instances. If you have 2 users, you should have 2 instances of result card. So now I want to wrap this entire thing inside of a link component. So import that from next/link like this. And let's go ahead and destructure the data. And in here, let's go ahead and pass in the href to go to /data user username like this. Great. And now inside of here, I want to create a class name age full, width full, and space y 4. And now inside, we're going to put our thumbnail. But keep in mind that not every stream will have a thumbnail. So this component that we're going to create now is going to be able to use the user's avatar and use that as a fallback in case it doesn't have a thumbnail. And we're also going to create a cool hover effect so that it looks like it's kind of floating when we hover on it, and it has the blue background, which is the primary color of our application. So it's going to be a really cool effect. So let's go ahead and replace this and just add a thumbnail component, which we don't have yet, but we're going to create. And let's go ahead and pass in the source to be data.thumbnail URL. Let's create a fallback to be data.user.image URL. Image URL. Let's go ahead and pass in isLive to be data is live. And let's pass in the username to be data user username. Like that. And now we're going to reuse this thumbnail component in the search page. So I'm going to create it inside of my global components folder. So thumbnail.tsx like this. And in here, I'm going to create an interface thumbnail props to accept the source, which is string or null, fallback, which is a string, isLive, which is a boolean, and username, which is a string. And let's go ahead and export cost thumbnail. And let's return a div thumbnail like this. And let's go ahead and let's assign the props, thumbnail props, and extract the source, fallback, isLive, and username. Go back inside of the result card and import this from components, thumbnail, like that. And you should no longer be having any errors. Instead, you should see the text thumbnail, and you can already click on this and it should redirect you to the stream of that user, right? But for now, make sure you are on the homepage. This is what we are currently developing. All right. So inside of the thumbnail, we're going to handle the case if we don't have a source and if we have a source. So this is what I want to do first. First, I want to create kind of my default content here. So let's give this a class name of group aspect video relative rounded medium and cursor pointer like that. Now inside, I'm going to create another div which is going to have a class name of rounded MD absolute inset 0 BG blue 600. And let me just write something inside. Oh, actually, I don't have to. Great. So you can already see it. Perfect. So BG Blue 600, by default, is going to have an opacity 0. But when we do group hover, it's going to have opacity 100. So now, when you hover over, you should see an opacity. It should be invisible, but move your cursor over the screen and you should see the thumbnail. Great. So just make sure that you have group hover and that you added the group class to the parent element like that. And let's give a transition to the opacity so it looks just a little bit smoother. All right. And now let's create flex, items center, and justify center like this. Great. And now inside, we're going to go ahead and render our content. So let's define content outside of the return here. Let content. And inside of this div, we're going to render that content. And it's going to be dynamic depending on if we have the thumbnail or not. So let's go ahead and check if we don't have a source. In that case, content is going to be the following. Let's create a class name with BG background like this. Let's give it flex call, items center, justify center, gap y4, height full, width full, transition transform, group dash hover, translate x2, group dash hover, minus translate minus y minus 2 and rounded MD. And I think you can already take a look at it and see how we have a nice little effect now. You can see how it almost floats when we hover on something. Great. And inside of here, we're gonna go ahead and simply render the user avatar from /user avatar. I'm gonna change this to use the components like this. So import that. And in here, we have to pass a couple of props. So size is gonna be large. We're gonna pass in the show badge prop, the username, which is gonna be the username, image URL, which is gonna be the fallback, and let's also give it is live off is live, like this. So since I don't have thumbnail in at least one of my items, there we go. You can see how this looks now. Great. And let's go ahead now and let's create an alternative, which is gonna be even easier. So the alternative else, let's go ahead and create a div here. Actually, no, what is gonna happen is it's going to assign a content, right? And it's simply going to render image from next/image. So make sure you import image from next image here, and it's going to render that original source. So let's give it a source of source, a fill property, an alt of thumbnail, and let's give it a class name of object cover, transition transform, group hover, translate x2, group hover minus translate minus y minus 2, and rounded MD, like this. Great. And now I believe that we can also create a thumbnail skeleton, but let's just see. So when I refresh here, I think I might have made some mistake here, because I don't think this should be completely hidden by default. Let me just go ahead and confirm. So yes, I made a mistake here. So you can see that by default, our opacity is 0, and then only when we hover something appears. So that's how it's supposed to work, but I made a small mistake. I put content inside of that div, but that div is supposed to be a self-closing tag. So go ahead and move content out of this div, and you can just remove the end tag and make it a self-closing tag, like this. And now it should look better. There we go. So now we have our grid here. As you can see, we have a nice little effect. And if we don't have a thumbnail, you can see that it has this little hover, right? So now I'm gonna go inside of my currently logged in user. So I don't even have to be in the creator dashboard. From here, I can add a thumbnail. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my screenshot here that I took. Let's go ahead and upload this image just to confirm that our thumbnail works as well inside of that grid. So let's wait a second for this to upload. There we go, the thumbnail is here. And when I go here, there we go, I can see the thumbnail right here. So now I wanna go ahead and create the skeleton for the thumbnail so that we can easily create a larger skeleton later on. So go inside of the thumbnail here and let's prepare our skeleton. So import skeleton from ./UI skeleton, but I'm going to change it to /components UI skeleton. And let's go ahead and do export const thumbnail skeleton to return a div with a class name, group, aspect, video, relative, rounded XL, and cursor pointer. And inside we are going to render our skeleton component with class name hfull and width full. Great. Now let's go back inside of the result card and we can continue developing. So we lastly added this thumbnail which we were developing, and now I want to go ahead and render if data is live. In that case, let's go ahead and render our div like this, which is going to render our live badge from components live badge. So in order to see this, I recommend that you click start streaming inside of your OBS like this. And now there we go, I have a huge live badge here. So I recommend that at least one active live stream you turn on for now. And now let's go ahead and position it. So I'm going to give this div a class name of absolute, top 2, left 2, group, hover, translate x2, group, hover, minus translate minus y minus 2, and transition transform. Like this. There we go. Now it's flush, as you can see, with this. Perfect. And on here it doesn't exist, but don't worry because we're gonna have some additional information below. Great. So now that we have this, let's go outside of this conditional here, and let's render a new div with a class name flex gap x3, and let's add the user avatar component from components user avatar. So make sure you import that. Let's go ahead and give it a username of data user username. Let's give it an image URL of data user image URL, and is live property of data is live, like this. And below that, I'm gonna add a div with a class name flex call, text small, and overflow hidden, like this. And let's create a paragraph which renders data.name, which is the name of the stream. And let's give it a class name truncate, font semi-bold, hover, text blue 500, like that. And another paragraph which renders data user username, and give this a class name of text muted foreground. And there we go. We have our homepage. And you can see how, even if, let's go ahead and give this a thumbnail just to see how it looks. Actually, I have this other browser, great. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add a thumbnail to my stream here just to see how that looks while a stream is active. I don't think anything is different, but I just want to show you that you can still tell by that indicator on the user avatar. Great, so now my stream has an image here. So let me just refresh here, and there we go. You can still see that it's active because of this little thumbnail that we have here. Great. So we finished with the result card, and now I want to create the result card skeleton. So let's export cont result card skeleton here. And I want to go ahead and prepare the skeleton components from components UI skeleton. And let's go ahead and return a div with a class name of hfull, widthfull, and space y4. Let's render the thumbnail skeleton, which we created. So import that from components thumbnail. Below that, let's go ahead and add a class name flex gap x3 and render the user avatar skeleton. So make sure you import the user avatar skeleton. And below that, we're gonna create a new div with a class name flex call, text small. Actually, we just need gap y1 here. And let's add a skeleton here, and let's multiply it. Give the first one a class name of h4 and a width of 32, and the lower one class name of h3 and width of 24, like this. Great. And now we can go back inside of our results page and we can create a proper results skeleton. So inside of this div, add a normal skeleton first. So import that from components UI skeleton. Let me just join these two together. And let's give this one a class name of h8 and a width of 290 pixels and margin bottom of 4. So this skeleton is representing this h2 text. And now we're gonna go ahead and create a div here. And what we can do is simply copy the entire class name from our original div. So paste the class name like this. And then inside, we're gonna mock an array. So spread an array of 4 items dot map, get skip the first one, get the index, and render result card skeleton. Make sure you import this from result card and simply assign it a key to be the index, like this. Great. So now we should have a proper loading state, as you just saw in a second here. Perfect. So we finished our homepage. Great. And now I want to go ahead and see how much of the stream I actually need, right? Because we pass in the entire data here. But let's see, what do we actually need from the stream. So we need the thumbnail URL, we need is live, and we also need the name of the stream, I believe. Let me just find where we use it. There we go, name. So let's go to the feed service here and let's modify this a little bit. So I'm logged in. So first I'm going to check this one. Outside of where, I'm going to add select, and I'm going to select thumbnail URL. I'm going to select the name, and I'm going to select is live. Like that. Did I do this correctly? Looks like I did something wrong. So let's see, where did I do it wrong? Where do I have to put it? Select here. Is live true? Maybe it's because of the type of this stream. If I give this any, no. Maybe it's because of include. So if I go select from here, yeah. So let's go ahead and select user to be true, is live to be true, name to be true, and what did we say? Thumbnail URL to be true. I think that's all we need. And I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna assign that in here as well. So make sure that both in your user ID, you only select this couple of things, and we don't need the include, because we're going to do that using select now. And now my results, oh, we also need ID, yes. So let's go ahead and select ID to be true up here and up here. Okay. And now, yeah, our result differs now. So let's go inside of the result card and let's modify this to be an object which has a user, which is a type of user, is live, which is a Boolean. We have name, which is a string, and we have thumbnail URL, which is string or null. And there we go. That resolved our type error here. Perfect. And now everything should still be working. Let me just refresh to confirm. There we go. I have the thumbnail URL, I have the name of the stream, and I have my username, and I'm not spilling any additional information. Great. All right. And that wraps up our homepage, and we fixed that little security issue what we had. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a look at my user service and see if we can improve that in the stream here. And then we're going to wrap it all up with the results page and the community tab where we can unblock users. All right, so before we go on to creating the results search page, I want to go ahead and fix a couple of issues that I have here. So first things first, I want to give you a quick reminder that if when you start streaming, you're not seeing the user become live, so I'm going to refresh, and there you can see how my user just became live. If you're not seeing that, make sure that you have your ngrok running, right? So you need to have this URL running, whatever it is, or you can run ngrok HTTP 3000 and make sure that in your live kit in webhooks, you have that exact URL. If you change the URL, you can click edit endpoint and then modify it. Just remember to leave the suffix at the end. So I just wanted to give you a quick reminder of that. So go ahead and start a live stream and ensure that you can see the live stream in here, and ensure that you have a live connection at the side here. And now I want to go ahead and just modify my result card a bit because I've noticed a couple of issues. So let's go inside of browse home components result card. And first thing that I've noticed is inside of thumbnail here, we have a little issue. And that's that I wrote group hover minus translate -1. So change that to -2. That's how it should look like. And I think in the video I even said 2, but I wrote 1. And the other thing is this. So this actually isn't even showing anywhere. That's because this should be inside of the thumbnail. So go inside of your result card and copy this like that and remove it from here. And then go inside of thumbnail and go in here to your main return function where you render the content dynamically, and below it render this and change this from data is live to just is live. And import live badge in here right there, and I'm gonna change it to components like this. And now, as you can see in my view here, there we go. We have a nice live badge in the corner. So that's what I wanted to showcase. So make sure that you are live somewhere, and you should have a nice little indicator. And I believe that even if I remove my thumbnail now, so let me just go to another user here. I'm gonna go ahead and remove my thumbnail like this. I want to see how that looks like now. So if I remove my thumbnail, I have live in the corner and I have live here. If you like it like that, you can leave it, but I have a feeling it's a bit too much, right? I think one indicator is enough. So what I'm gonna do, inside of the thumbnail component, I'm only gonna render this if is live and if we have source, like this. So only if we are live and if we have a thumbnail, right? Because if we don't have a thumbnail, we're gonna show the badge on our user avatar, right? So no need for that. Great. So we resolved that issue. Now inside of the result card, I think I've noticed one more thing. So go inside of the result card. I misspelled truncate, so make sure it's properly named, and now you can see how I have like a little 3 dots at the end here. Great. And what I want to do now is I want to resolve this little potential security issue that we have with this page right here, where we render our actual stream. So go ahead and make sure you are live, because I have a feeling it's going to be easier to confirm that everything is still working. So for this screen, we use our lib user service, right? Specifically get user by username. So we use the get user by ID as well, and we include the entire stream. But that's okay, because if you search where we use it, we only use it in server actions, and that's not in the JavaScript bundle. So that's in a completely different encapsulation. So we don't have to worry about spilling any secrets there. But inside of get user by username, it's kind of dangerous to include the entire stream because we have some sensitive information there. So what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to change this to not use include, but instead it's going to use select. And I'm going to go ahead, and now we have to select everything we need from the user. So we need the ID of the user, we need the username of the user, we need the bio of the user, image URL of the user, and I think those are all the information we need from the user. And now for the stream, we can go ahead and pick exactly what we need. So we also need the ID from the stream. We need is live. Oh, and make sure you do another select inside of the stream. So we need ID. We need is live to be true. We need is chat delayed. We need is chat enabled. We need is chat followers only. We need the thumbnail URL, and we need the name of the stream. So there we go. Now we don't load all of those sensitive information like stream key and ingress ID. We only load very specifically exactly what we need. And now what we have to do is we have to go back inside of our stream player component so we can modify the types, because okay, this seems to be working now. And I think that if I refresh this page, everything is still working. Yeah, everything is still working. But here's the thing, we have some type errors in our components now. So inside of our app folder, browse, username, page.tsx, we should have an error here because we're passing an invalid model of stream and player. Because you can see in here in the stream player props, we expect the entire thing. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a type custom stream, which is going to have an ID, which is a string, is chat enabled, which is a boolean, is chat delayed, which is a boolean, is chat followers only, which is a boolean. We're going to have is alive, which is a boolean as well, thumbnail URL, which is a string or null because it's optional in Prisma, and name of the stream. And then we're also going to have a type of custom user, and let's put an equals sign here. It's going to have an ID, it's going to have username, which is a string, bio, which is string or null because it's optional in Prisma, stream because it's going to be custom stream or null as well because it's also not required, and image URL, which is a string. And lastly, we're also going to have the count followed by, which is a number. And then we can modify the stream player props. So instead of stream, it's going to be custom stream like that. And instead of user, it's going to be custom user like this. Great. And it seems like I've resolved all of the issues here. And it looks like my entire thing here is still working. Let me try in my creator dashboard here. So in here, we seem to be getting an error. So what we have to do is go ahead and see what's going on inside of app folder, dashboard, username, home page.tsx. So we also need the external user ID, it seems. Okay, so let's go inside of get user by username and let's add external user ID to also be selected. And then we no longer have any errors here. And if I try and refresh in my creator dashboard, there we go. The entire thing is working. Let's write a test message here to confirm. So we have slow mode on. So after 3 seconds, it's here and it received here. Great. And let's go ahead and see if there are any issues with my follow and unfollow. So this seems to be working fine. And now I am blocked. Perfect. So we resolved this little potential security issue in our stream player. We are now only sending the information that we actually need. We have no type errors inside of our app. And now we are ready to create our search page. So for now, we can stop streaming because we're going to go ahead and create this page where we currently write something. It leads us to a 404 not found. So we're going to go ahead and build this now. So this one will not take as long because we can reuse some components like our thumbnail. So let's go ahead inside of our app folder, inside of browse, let's create a new folder called search. And inside, let's create page.tsx. Let's go ahead and create a search page. And let's create a div search page like this. And now, when you type something in your navbar here, you should not be getting any errors. So just confirm you're not getting any errors. I had one error, but I cannot see it again. So I guess it was just some cache. Great. You see, it should basically just say a search page. And what I can do from here now is I can create an interface search page props. And since this is a server component, we can access search params the same way we would access params in dynamic URL. So instead of writing params and then, we usually write username, what we can do is we can ask for search params, which are going to look for the query inside of our URL. And we know that we have a term, which can be optional. So write it like this. And then inside, let's go ahead and assign search page props here and let's extract the search params. And what I want to write is if we don't have search params term, go ahead and simply redirect from next navigation to the root page. So make sure you import this. And now what should happen is that if you have something in your search and in your URL, so search should have a term property, it should stay on the search page. But if you just go to /search, it should redirect you back to the home page. Exactly. So that's the behavior that I want for this page. And now let's give this a class name of hfull, padding of 8, max width of screen 2XL and MX auto, like that. And then inside, I'm going to render the results, but they're going to be different results. So we're not going to reuse the ones from before because we want them in a different layout for search here. So let's go inside and create underscore components. And let's create a new file, results.tsx, like that. Let's create an interface, results props, to accept the term, which is an optional string, like this. And let's go ahead and export const results. Let's return a div results. And let's make them accept the results props term like that. And inside of here, let's render an h2 element, results for term, and then let's use quote like this. Sorry, quote like that. Term. And then another quote. Like this. And let's give this h2 a class name of text large, font semi-bold, and margin bottom of 4, like that. And while we are here, let's also do export const results skeleton. And for now, you can just return an empty div. Now go back inside of the search page right here, and go ahead and import the results from components results. So don't accidentally import it from our home page, because that's the different one. Let's wrap this around suspense. And you can import suspense from React, as I did here. And let's pass in the fallback to be results skeleton from /component. So from the same import that we have here. And let's pass in the term to be our search params term, like this. Great. And now if I go ahead and search test here, there we go, it says results for term test. If I try something else, it says exactly that. If I clear everything and click again, nothing happens. But if I go to /search directly, I'm redirected back to the home page. Great. So just make sure that this is working, that you have the term. In case you're not getting the term in your URL, go ahead and visit my GitHub, or go back in the video if that's easier for you. It should be inside of browse components navbar search. So in here we have the logic which adds that term from the input to our URL. So go and find this component and just confirm that it looks the same as mine in case you're having any issues. Great. Now let's go back inside the results page here, and let's turn this into an asynchronous function, because in here we're going to call our search page, but we first need to create our search service. So let's go inside of the lib folder and let's create search service.ps, and let's import the database, and let's import get self from the auth service. And I'm going to go ahead and replace those with /lib like this. And now let's export const get search to be an asynchronous function which accepts the term, which is going to be an optional string. Now let's go ahead and do the trick for logged in and logged out users. So wait, get self, user ID is self.id, catch, user ID is null, like that. Streams is going to be an empty array. And now let's go ahead and first do the easy one. So if we have the user ID, I'm going to write a comment to do. Let's do the easy one first. So in here, do streams to be await database stream find many, like that, where, and now we're going to go ahead and use the search either by username or by name. So in our Prisma schema, we added these preview features for full text search and full text index. And I believe in my stream model, we added at full text index here for the name of the stream. So since we are also going to query by username, perhaps I should also add the same thing like here, but for user. But we're gonna see. I'm gonna try without that. I think it will still work, but it's gonna be a slow query. So we're gonna see. Let's go ahead and just continue for now. So we're gonna combine both of those. So we're gonna use the OR operator. We're gonna open an array, and first we're gonna write the name of the stream contains the term, like that. And then in the other object, we're gonna write if the user relation username field contains the term as well. Great. And let's also go ahead and add include user true, and let's do order by, and let's do an array of items, right? So I'm gonna write is live descending, and I'm gonna write updated at also descending, like that, and do return streams at the end. Is it streams? It is it is streams, but so okay, now we also have to do it in here, and I think that's gonna get rid of this error. So let's go ahead and copy this entire function because it's gonna be very similar. So copy this query and paste it instead of this to do here. Like that, there we go, that got rid of the error. But now what we have to do is we have to extend the where query besides this or to also not include any user that is blocking us. So let's write user right here, not blocking some blocked ID to be our user ID. So we are not gonna show that user that is blocking us anywhere on the home page, on the search page, nowhere. Great, so I think this should be it for our search service. And of course, we're gonna come back to this just to decide whether we actually need everything from the stream or can we improve those a little bit on security side so we don't include the ingress ID, the stream key, and stuff like that. So let's go back inside of the search page, components results here, and now we can go ahead and write const data to be await get search from our search service and pass in the term like this. Great. And now let's go ahead below the h2 and write if data.length is 0. In that case, let's go ahead and write a div, no results found, try searching for something else. And I think we can render a paragraph instead of a div for this one. And let's give it a class name of text muted foreground and text small, like this. So now you should have this text if you search for something that doesn't exist. But if you search for Antonio, for example, which is one of my username, there we go. You can see that that doesn't appear because it looks like we do have some results. So go ahead and search something that hides this, meaning that you do have some results. And then let's go ahead and create a div with a class name flex call and gap y4. And inside of here, we're going to go over our data.map, get the individual result, and we're going to create our result card, but don't import it because this is also going to be a new result card because it's going to have a different layout. So give it data and result.id as the key. Great. And now we have to create our result card.tsx inside of the search page, of course. Did I misspell this? Result card, results. Okay, looks okay. And let's go ahead and first create an interface, result card props, to accept data, which is an entire stream object for now, and also a user, which is an entire user object. And let's export const result card. And let's return a div. Let's assign the props, result card props. And let's extract the data. And I want to assign that immediately here so you can see the changes that you're doing. So make sure you import result card, refresh your localhost, and you should no longer be having any errors. And now in here, let's first wrap the entire thing inside of link from next/link like this. Let's give it an href of /data user username. And then let's create a div with a class name of width full flex gap x4. Then create another div with a class name relative h 9 rem and width of 16 rem. And inside render our thumbnail component from components thumbnail. So it's great that we can reuse that this easily. And let's go ahead and give it source to be data thumbnail URL. Let's give it fallback to be data user image URL. Let's give it is live to be data is live. Let's give it username to be data user username, like that. And I think you should already be seeing it. And there we go. You can see how now I have some results page here for the term search Antonio. Let me just go back to the search page here. And now we're going to go ahead and add some information here. So outside of this div right here, which is wrapping the thumbnail, create a new div with a class name space y1, then another div with a class name flex items center and gap x2. And then inside, go ahead and render a paragraph, data user username. And let's go ahead and let's style this a bit. So I want to give it a class name of font bold, text large, cursor pointer, hover, text blue 600, actually 500, like that. And let's add verified mark. And we can do that from components verified mark, like that. And then outside of that div, add a paragraph for the stream name, so data.name. And let's give it a class name of text small and text muted foreground. Let's copy and paste this, and now we're gonna format our date here. Let's go ahead and import format distance to now from datefns, which we installed, I believe, at some point in our tutorial. I mean, we definitely did, I just don't remember when exactly. And in here, let's render format distance to now, new date, data.updated at, and let's add options, add suffix true, like this. And there we go. We have our search page. You can see how differently it looks from our home page. So that's why we created those different components, because this way you can see how it has a nice layout and it definitely reminds of a proper search page. And when you click on it, you should get redirected to that user's stream. Great. And now I want to go ahead. Oh, do we have an error here? Could be because I stopped it in the middle of loading. Yeah, it looks like it's because of that. Okay, that's not too big of a deal. I think you can fix that by... I think it's because it's trying to create a token and then it's trying to set state on an unmounted component. So you can add an use effect which unmounts and then breaks the function. I don't know. I don't think it's such too big of an issue. So I'm gonna focus on other things for now, and then maybe we'll come back to that. What I want to do now is I want to import a skeleton component from components UI skeleton here, and I want to create the result card skeleton. So let's go ahead and return a div here with a class name of width full flex gap x4, and let's go ahead and add a div here with a class name of relative h9 rem and width of 16 rem. And let's render the thumbnail skeleton component. So make sure you import that from thumbnail right here. And then below that, add a div with a class name of space y2. And we're just gonna go ahead and render the skeleton component a couple of times. So let's give this a class name of h4 and width of 32. Let's copy this 3 times. This is gonna have a height of 3 and a width of 24. Last one is gonna have a width of 12 and height of 3. Like that. Now go back inside of the results page, and now we're gonna use those results card to actually create a proper results skeleton. So in here, first let's add a normal skeleton to represent our h2 elements. So import skeleton. Let's go ahead and give this a class name of h8 and width of 290 pixels and a margin bottom of 4. And then create a div here with a class name of flex call, and gap y4. And let's go ahead and open an array here. Sorry, curly brackets, spread an array of 4 elements inside, dot map. Go ahead and skip the first one, get the index, and render result card skeleton from /result card. So just make sure you do both of the imports for the result card from your closest import, because we have same named components from our home page. So just make sure you don't use those because they have a different layout, right? They're not for search. And let's give it key of index like this. Did I do this correctly? I don't think I did this correctly. No, I did not. Let me try this again. Okay, so open curly brackets, go ahead and write an array of 4 elements, dot map, skip the first one, get the index, and then inside render the result card skeleton. And again, I have a feeling, yeah, I make a mistake, sorry. Right here, this is where I'm supposed to put .map, sorry. Okay, get the index, and let's go ahead and third try. Is it correct now? Honestly, I don't know. Okay, so I was confused because I wasn't getting this error for the missing key, so I assumed I did something wrong with the map iteration, and I did it wrong in the first time because I started .map chain here when I should have started here. So what I did was just refreshed my Visual Studio Code, and now let's do key I like this. Now it should be correct. Okay, and I believe that if I go inside of my search page.tsx, I already have this suspense and there isn't much I should do here. So now when I refresh, there we go. We have a nice loading skeleton here as well. Great, you finished the entire thing. All that's left is the community tab here. And of course, we're gonna go back to the search results just a bit later to see if we have some security issues by passing the entire stream. Great job. So now let's go ahead and let's see if we actually need all of the items in our search page. So in our results, we use the getSearch function, and that function seems to include the entire stream document. So let's go ahead and let's visit our result card to see actually what we need. So we seem to need the user, which we can include entirely. Like that seems to be fine. Like there's no need to, none of these items here are, you know, secret or anything. External user ID, that's completely fine. They cannot do much with that. But our stream, we definitely should not send ingress ID, server URL, and stream key. Those things should be private to the creator. So inside of my stream search service here in the getSearch function, I'm gonna go ahead and modify this. So instead of include user, so first I'm doing this inside of this if we have the user ID. So in here, I'm gonna change this to be select like that, and we can take the whole user. And then for this, let's go ahead and take the ID of the stream to be true. Let's get the name of the stream to be true, is live to be true, and thumbnail URL to be true. And I think that's everything we need. So we have the user entirely, we have the thumbnail URL now, we have the isLive property, we have the name property, and oh yeah, we need updated at. So let's add that as well. Updated at true, like that. And now I should be having an error inside of my search page results.tsx because this data has some very specific items here. And we can actually copy it from here. Yeah, you can hover over the data and you can then copy ID, name, thumbnail URL, and this if you want to, right? You're gonna see where I'm gonna paste that now. And then go inside of the result card in the search folder, so this specifically, and we're gonna modify this so it's not a stream entirely. Instead, this is what it's going to be. So it's gonna be an object which has these properties and user, which is user, like this. So make sure you extend the data to be an object which takes in an ID, name, thumbnail URL, is live, updated at, and user. And then you can remove stream from Prisma client. And let's see if I have any errors. And it seems like I don't have any errors inside any of my pages. Let's confirm that my search is still working. So if I search for Antonio here, I should be getting my streams. Perfect. Great, we resolved that security issue, and now we are finally ready to create the last part of this, which is the community tab. So let's create that page so that when we click on it, we no longer get this 404 error. Let's go ahead and close everything here, and let's go inside of our app folder, dashboard, username, and the same way we created chat and keys, we are now gonna create. So instead of our sidebar, we have navigation, and in here for the community, the route is /u username community. So we have to create a folder called community inside of the username folder. Just make sure you're doing that inside of dashboard where you have the U prefix. So let's create the community folder, and inside let's create page.tsx. And let's create this community page. And let's write a div community page like that. And there we go. We no longer have a 404 error. Instead, we are now selecting community. Great. Let's go ahead and let's give this div a class name of padding 6 like this. And inside, let's create another div with a class name of margin bottom of 4. And let's create an h1 element community settings like this. And let's give this h1 element a class name of text 2XL and font bold like this. There we go. So now our community settings title matches the same thing we have, for example, in our chat, right? Great. What we have to do now is we have to add a component called our data table, right? So we're going to go ahead and follow Shadcn instructions on how to do that. So go to Shadcn UI. I mean, if this page changed in the future, you can always just visit my GitHub and look at the exact components that I created. That's the great thing about Shadcn. So we own the components, right? We don't depend on anyone else updating them. So find the data table in Shadcn components here. And let's go ahead and install everything we need. So first, we need to add the basic table from Shadcn UI. So make sure you add that. So let me go inside of the terminal here. I will shut down my Prisma Studio and do npx Shadcn UI at latest add table like this. And the next thing is we have to install TanStack React Table dependency. All right, let's go ahead and run that as well. So TanStack React Table. And now I think we're ready to start kind of building this. So we're going to create the columns, data table, and we already have the page. So let's go ahead and first create our column definitions, right? So what you can do is you can copy this exact component. You're going to see it now in a second. So it's under number 1, column definitions here. And you have this kind of example where you would store them. And let's go ahead and let's go inside of our community folder and create a new folder underscore components. And inside create columns .ts like this, and you can paste the entire thing inside. So you can see it's a very simple code. We import column def from TanStack React Table. We define some random model, right? And then we just create some columns here. So I'm going to leave it like this for now. Obviously, this is not what we need, but let's leave it like this for now so it's easier for us to understand. And now we have to create a data table component. So go to step 2 here and copy this entire data table component. So let's go and create a new file, datatable.psx, and paste the entire thing inside. And since we have this installed, we have no errors. And since we added the table, we have no errors as well. Great. So we have this entire component here. We have the columns. And let's see if we need something else. Let's see what is step 3 here. So step 3 is to render the table. And to fill the table, we can use this mock function get data. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to go inside of my community folder page.tsx. I'm going to go outside of here and I'm going to add this mock data like this. And I think I can import payment from components columns. Yeah, because we filled the columns with this type payment, right? And we exported it. So you can import it from here. For now, you know, it doesn't matter. Great. And now we have to await that data and we have to render this. So let's do that. Let's turn the community page to be into an asynchronous function. Let's get that data which we mocked in here. So it's just going to return this. And let's go ahead now and let's render our data table component like this. So I'm going to go ahead and just outside of this div, which wraps our h1 element, render the data table. So we have to import data table from components data table, and we have to import columns from this import, which we already have where we imported the payments like that. And I think you can save this and you should now see a table here. There we go. We have a nice little table here. And now what I want to do is I want to modify the columns, and I want to modify the data so it actually fills our elements. So first, we have to modify our block service so that it actually returns all the users we blocked. So let's go inside of lib, and we have block service here. We have a function is blocked by user, and we have a function block user, and we have unblock user. So let's go all the way to the end here, and let's create export const get blocked users to be an asynchronous function. Let's get self using await get self, and I believe we already have this imported. If not, you can import it from auth service. Now let's define our blocked users to be await database block find many, where blocker ID is self.id, and let's include the blocked person so we can display their information and simply return blocked users like that. Great, that is our service. So now we can go back inside of the app folder, dashboard, username, community page, and we no longer have to use this mock data. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this mock data like that. And I'm going to remove this type payment here for now. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write const blocked users to be await get blocked users from our lib block service like that. And now we have to format that data so it fits the columns of our table. So let's write const formatted data to be blocked users dot map, get the individual block, spread all the information in the block, and now let's get the user ID to be blocked ID, image URL to be blocked image URL. Let's pass in the username to be blocked username, and created at is going to be format, not from path, but let's go ahead and let's import format from date fns. So we're going to format new date blocked created at like this, and pass in day, month, and then year. So in Europe we put days first. If you're in the US, go ahead and reverse this, right? Okay, so we have that, and we should spread block, not blocked. Great, now we have the formatted data, and let's now pass that to our data. And of course we're going to get a little issue here because that's not what this column support. You can see that in here we have, well, we actually have no results because we don't block anyone. So here's what I recommend you do. Go ahead and block someone. So we can do that by going inside of my stream here. And how about we start streaming, right? So I think I'm actually streaming on another user now. There we go. So I'm going to go in here, in this user right here. There are two users. Let me just refresh this. So go inside of the one that is streaming and just block one user. Let's go ahead and see. There we go. So I'm going to block this user. So now I should get disconnected from here. Okay. And now inside of community here, I have one result here. You can see that it no longer says no results because I actually blocked someone. So you can confirm this. Well, first of all, this blocked user should no longer be seeing this. So 404, right? Because that user is blocked now. And the second way is that you can do console log formatted data here just to confirm that you actually have someone blocked. So inside of your terminal, when you run npm run dev, you should be seeing a log here. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh this page where I can load my blocked users. And there we go. You can see that code with Antonio is blocked and I have my formatted data. Great. So that is working. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch my logged in user so I can see my table here instead of having to switch to this browser. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in another user. All right, so I am in the user that is currently streaming. I'm going inside of my dashboard, and in here I blocked one user inside of my community. So now we have to go ahead and we have to modify the columns so that it actually fits our user. So let's go inside of components, columns here, and let's go ahead and modify the type. So the type is going to be blocked user, right? And the information we need is ID, which is a string, user ID, which is a string, image URL, which is a string, username, which is a string, and created at, which is also a string because we pass in the formatted data, and this format returns a string. So it's not a type of data, it's a type of string. And then we can set that to be our column definition. And there we go. We no longer have any errors in this data because now it matches what we're passing here. But now we have to modify this accessor key. So let's make the first one to be username. And let's make the header be username as well. Then the second accessor key is going to be created at, and that's going to say date blocked. And the last one is, well, it's not going to have anything. It's going to have an ID of actions, right? And in here, what we can do is just return a cell, which is very simply going to render a button from components UI button, not button props, sorry. So button, and we have to turn this from .ts to .tsx like this, and then we can import JSX elements inside. So make sure you change columns, and then you should be able to import button from components UI button, and IntelliSense should not be playing around. Great, and let's go ahead and write unblock in here like this in your page. Let's see if I have to change anything. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shut down npm run dev and run it again, because I think by renaming from .ts to .tsx we might have caused some caching issues here. So let's just wait a second for this to come back. And there we go. You can see that my blocked user is code with Antonio, and I have the exact date where I blocked that user. So what I want to do now is I want to extend my data table to have pagination, to have search, and to be able to sort by username, to sort by the date we blocked user, right? So I want to make this table a bit more usable. So let's go ahead and back inside the data table here. And we don't have to do this one, which says cell formatting. We're going to do that later. Actually, we can actually do this. Okay. How about we go inside of columns here, and how about we extend our first one here, which is username. So besides header, add a cell property here, get the row, so we have the information about it, and inside we're going to render a div with a class name, flex, item center, and gap x4. And let's render the user avatar component from components user avatar. So make sure you add this import. Let's give it the username to be row.original.username. And image URL is going to be row.original.image URL. So let me collapse those elements so you can see like that. And let's create a span row.original.username like this. So now our cell should display the user's image like this. So I can now see the image of the user that I've blocked. Perfect. So that was step one, cell formatting. And now let's go ahead and do some row actions here. So let's see if we are going to need this. So row actions, okay, I'm gonna leave this for later. Let's first do pagination. So in order to do pagination, we have to go inside of our data table. So let's prepare that. Go inside of your data table component. So let me expand this so you can see exactly where I went. So inside of community components, we have data table. So make sure you are here and import get pagination row model from TanStack React table. Then inside of use React table, you have to add get pagination row model like this. So let me zoom out so you can see. So this is a key and this is the value. All right. And now we have to add pagination controls. So let's go ahead and import button and let's place it. I'm going to place it just below the table like this. And now we have to wrap the entire thing inside of a div first. So let's do that. So wrap the entire thing inside of a div. Go all the way to the bottom like that. And then indent everything like this, all right? And now we have to add this line of code right here. So you can go ahead and copy. You can see it's clearly highlighted, right? So just go ahead and copy it. And we don't have to copy the last one div, because that's the div which ends this div, right? So just this part. If it's easier, you can just go into my GitHub and copy the data table component, right? We are copying this anyways. So we have to paste this all the way to the bottom just before this new div ends, like this. Great, and I think this should already be appearing here. There we go, we have previous and next, and when we get to more than 10 blocked users, this is going to work because it's only going to render the first 10. Great, so we did that. Now I want to add sorting, so let's go ahead and import everything from React here at the top. Let's import sorting state. Let's import sorted model, like this. Let's add this sorting state to the function. So here, like this. Now let's go ahead inside of the use React table and let's add on sorting change, set sorting, get sorted row model, and state sorting. So these 3 elements like that. I'm going to copy all of this and I'm going to paste it inside of the use React table. So I added this, and I added this. All right. And now we have to make this header cells sortable, because right now we do have the functionality, but we don't have anything to trigger that functionality. So go back inside of your columns here and change the header to now go ahead and extract the column like this, and go ahead and immediately render a button. You should already have that because we use it, I believe. Yes, make sure just you have the button. And inside, let's go ahead and give it a variant of ghost, and let's give it an onClick option, an arrow function which calls column.toggle sorting, column get is sorted, execute this function. So let me zoom out so you can see. Get is sorted is equal to ascending, like that. So write it exactly like this, and inside the button, we're gonna go ahead and render label username and the icon arrow up down from Lucid React. So make sure you import this right here, and let's go ahead and give this a class name of ML2, height of 4 and width of 4. And there we go. You can now click on this, but since I only have 1 user, there's no effect. But if you had more users, it's going to sort by username, right? Perfect. So now I also want to do that for date blocked. So what we can do is we can just copy and paste this, I believe, and use it exactly as we expected inside of this header where it says date blocked. So let me see, what did I copy exactly? So I'm just going to copy the entire header, and I'm going to replace the header here like that. And I'm going to change this label to date blocked. And I don't think we have to change anything in the onClick function. This is still going to work as intended. Great. So we added our sorting, and now I want to add filtering so we can search for a user. So we have to go back inside the data table component, and we have to import column filters state and get filtered row model. And we have to import our input component. So I'm going to add that just below our button component here. And now we have to add the state for our search. So just below sorting, I'm going to add the column filters. So this can all go in one line. Let me zoom out. So there we go. So React use state with the default value of an empty array. All right, let's see what do we have to do next. So now instead of the use React table, we have to add on column filters change. So let's add that. On column filters change is going to be set column filters, but we don't execute that. And then we add get filtered row model. So add this, and we also add column filters inside of the state. Great. And now we have to go ahead and add this input here, right? So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead inside of here at the top. I'm going to open a new div with the class name flex item center and py of 4. And then I'm going to render that input component. And let's go ahead and give it a placeholder of filter users. Let's go ahead and give it a value of, open parentheses, table get column username, because that's what we're going to be searching, question mark dot get filter value, like this, as string. Let me zoom out so you can see it in one line. And outside of the parentheses, add an optional operator to be an empty string, like this. Then let's add on change function here, which is going to call an event. And then it's going to call table get column username question mark dot set filter value event target value, like that. So if you want to, you can also write this in one line like this. Let me zoom out so you can see. And let me just collapse this. Like this. So this can be one line. So we immediately return this. Make sure you do it like this. Great. And I also want to add one class name to the input. Max with small, like that. And I believe that is everything we need to add. Yeah, everything. We can now shut this down. And there we go. Now if I type something else, no results. But if I type Antonio, we have the user here. Perfect. So what we have to create now is the actual unblock button, because currently what we have is just a dummy button. So let's go ahead inside of components and create a new file, unblock button.tsx. Let's mark this as use client. Let's create an interface unblock button props. Let's give it a user ID of string. Let's export const unblock button. Let's go ahead and destructure the props. So unblock button props. Let's destructure user ID. Let's go ahead and let's add use transition from React. And in here we can extract is pending and start transition. Let's go ahead and create const on click to call start transition. And it's going to call our server action on unblock from actions block. And we already have that when we were playing around with our block service. So just make sure that inside of your actions folder block, you have exported on unblock. So let's go ahead here and pass in the user ID. Let's chain.then. We can get the result here. And let's call toast from Sonar. So make sure you import that. So toast.success. And let's add backticks. And let's write user. And now let's get result.blocked.username unblocked. And let's chain.catch to simply render toast.error, something went wrong. Great. And now we can return our button from components UI button. So make sure you add this import. Whoops. All right. Let's render unblocked text. And let's give it disabled if is pending. Let's give it on click. On click. Let's give it variant of link. Let's give it size of small and class name of text blue 500 and full width. And now let's go back inside of our columns and let's go ahead and extract row from this cell and let's render unblock button. So make sure you import that from /unblock button and pass in the user ID to be row original user ID. Like this. Great. And let's try it out now. So it seems like I'm having some error here. Let's see if that's something temporary. Looks like it is. So if I go ahead and click unblock, it's pending, and there we go. The user is unblocked. Now I'm gonna go ahead and log in with that user here. And as you can see, I am logged in as Code with Antonio and I can look at the other Antonio's stream because I am unblocked. Perfect. And let's just confirm one more time. If I go into my creator dashboard now, so this is me streaming, like this is the streamer. I'm going to block Code with Antonio again. Code with Antonio is disconnected. And now if I go ahead, out, and I can still see the user here. That's fine, because when we refresh, we're not going to be able to see them. So if I click here, now I should just get an error. There we go. We cannot connect to this stream, and then they try to refresh, and there we go. We cannot see them in the homepage. We cannot see them in the recommended. Let's try searching. And we cannot see them here either. We can only see ourselves. Great. And let's try and unblock ourselves now. So I'm gonna click unblock here, and let's see if that is working as well. When I refresh here, there we go. I am unblocked. Great, great job. You finished the entire tutorial. Absolutely everything. Amazing job. All that's left is to deploy the application, which will just take 5 to 10 minutes. Don't worry. The hard part is officially over. I just want to confirm one couple of things here. So inside of our actions block, I don't think we need to do this on unblock. So just remove this line, it's not needed. Instead, what you can do is get self from await, get self, and you should revalidate your community tab. So self.username/community. So this is what you should do here. So just for good luck, I'm gonna try again. So in here, I'm joining again as a stream, and I'm gonna go ahead and block myself again. Then this user is immediately disconnected. I'm going inside of my community. Let me refresh. I will unblock the user, and this should revalidate. There we go. Great. It's working great. And one last thing that I think I forgot to tell you, inside of your app folder, API, webhooks, clerk, we have a case when user deletes their entire profile. And what I want to do here is I want to ensure that if they have a running stream, we reset that. So I'm going to simply add await reset ingresses from actions ingress. So you can import that from here. Reset ingresses payload data ID. So in case the stream is running and the account gets deleted, it's an edge case, there's a very low chance of this happening, but we're going to end the ingress for that user so that they don't spam our application. Great, great job, amazing job. All that's left is to deploy. So just before we deploy, I think I've noticed one small little bug in the previous module. It should be a very, very quick fix. Inside of my lib folder for my search service here, I added the select for user ID name is live, but I only did that for the if is user ID. I forgot to do it for else, right? But I think still it would work exactly as expected, but we are sending too much information there. So let's just change this to be select, and we can just copy this from here. So select user ID name is live, thumbnail, URL, and updated ad. And let me go ahead and paste that here. And there we go. It should all be completely okay. So let's just try this out. So if I go ahead and write test here, it's okay, it's working. If I write Antonio, it's working. If I log out from here, the homepage is working. If I write Antonio here, it is still working. And just one thing that I want to add, inside of my middleware, we technically do allow this, but I want to explicitly also add /search, right? Because I think search is allowed for logged out users because of this. But I also want to explicitly add search, just so we know that we want this page to be allowed. Great, and we can still look at the stream. We have absolutely everything inside. Amazing, amazing job. So in order to deploy this, we first have to add this to our GitHub. So let's do one last thing, which is to go inside of package.json, and inside of your scripts object, you should have a new script, post install, which is just going to say Prisma generate, like this. And then what I want you to do is I want you to go, and you can now finally shut down everything. So let's just have one terminal open, and let's just prepare this like that. This should be offline now. and go inside of your GitHub and create a new repository. So I'm gonna name this Next14 Twitch clone, and I'm gonna go ahead and make it private, and I'm going to click create a repository like this. And now inside of here, you're going to use the second option, which is to push to an existing repository from the command line. Before you can do that, make sure that you have no outstanding changes. So you should not have any numbers in this icon here. So do git add and git commit. And you can see that my commits have a specific number by the number of the video that I'm doing. So this for me is 33 deployment. For you, it might be just final. It doesn't matter. So just commit this like that. And then you can go ahead and copy these 3 commands here. So let's go ahead here and just paste them and enter. And that should push the entire repository right here. So now when I refresh my GitHub, there we go. You can see that I have my entire repository right here. Great. So now let's go ahead and let's go into Vercel and go ahead and select add new project. And go ahead and select your latest one. It should be right here, Next14 Twitch clone, and click import. And now let's go ahead and let's fill in the environment variables property. So for that, go inside of your .environment file. You can click copy everything. You can literally select everything from here and then just paste it inside like this. So make sure you have all of them and go ahead and click deploy. So we are going to have to change a couple of stuff after we deploy. We're going to have to change the Clerk webhook secret, or maybe we even won't. I'll try to explain in a second. So now let's go ahead and leave this building to do its thing. If it fails, I'm gonna unpause the video and show you where it fails and how to fix it. If not, we're gonna have a deployed app. And there we go. So mine seems to have deployed without any issues. Great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click, let's see, continue to dashboard. We need to get the URL of this page right here. So there we go, Next14 Twitch clone. So make sure that you don't use the deployment URL. Vercel will give you 2 URLs. Make sure you find this one. It should be much shorter than the other one. So I'm going to copy this now. And I'm gonna go ahead and replace it in my localhost here. And in here, I should be seeing the exact same page, right? Great. And here's the thing. Now that we have this URL, what we have to do is we have to modify the Clerk webhook and the LiveKit webhook so that they no longer use ngrok, because ngrok was only for development. For deployment, we don't need that because we have an actual URL. So you can do the following. You can either edit the endpoint and change this part of the URL to use the new one, right? Or you can add a new endpoint. So let's go ahead and give this a name of deployment or production. And let's write HTTPS and paste this, which is from Vercel/API/webhooks/LiveKit. So make sure this is correct. And make sure you select, well, you can create a new API key if you want, but for this tutorial, I'm just going to use the same one so we don't have to change all the keys. But it is a good practice that you create production keys later. But for now, just use the exact same one that you used in your previous webhook endpoint. And there we go. This should now be working. And you have to do the same thing in Clerk. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to edit this one. If you want to, you can create a new endpoint, but remember, when you create a new endpoint, you also need to update your signing secret, which is in our environment file. So that's why just for now, it's easier that you simply modify this webhook. So click edit and change this part of the URL here. Like that. Let me add HTTPS at the beginning, like that. So our Vercel URL/API webhooks Clerk and click save like this. And that should be it. So let's go ahead and try this now. So I'm going to click start streaming. I am on my deployed app. And if I set up my webhooks correctly, in a couple of seconds, this should turn to live, and it is. And let's take a look if we can stream. We can. I'm right here and I'm looking at my screen on the deployed website. Amazing, amazing job. You finished the entire tutorial. I don't even know how long this is, 15, 16 hours, something like that. amazing job. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to leave a like, share, and subscribe.